It is the pre-show of today's SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. Hi, everybody. We're just getting things started. I'm still moving cables around and getting things organized, checking cameras, doing the usual, getting the laptop set up. That looks good. I'm looking at all my cameras. They look pretty good right now. We are recording down here. This looks good. Streaming looks good. You're at 3%. That's what we need to be at. That's our cache. When that number starts going up, that's when I know something is going awry between myself and YouTube. And in this case, we're in good shape. 6 megabits per second, 5.93 megabits per second upstream is what I'm sending to YouTube. YouTube is processing that video, and then they are sending it to you. See how that works? Hey, chat room. Thanks for checking in, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Isn't that where they have the mountain where that has the Stargate inside? I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it's where that is. Pop the chat out. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. There we go. Very nice. Hey, everybody. We got chat room. Hello, Fort Bragg. Hello, Texas. Hello, Maryland. Or Maryland, depending on where you are from. Hello, Louisville. West Virginia is in the house. Morgantown, too. That's a happy, happy city. It's always good when you find a good city. A city that's got like a big university, and it's always fun. It's always a fun city, wherever it happens to be. Guyana, El Paso, Albuquerque. Hello, Miami. Hola, ¿cómo está? Good to see you. I miss my days living in Miami. You know what I really miss? I mean, I miss the people and I miss the place and that kind of thing. I miss the pastelitos. I miss the Cuban coffee. I miss the food. That's what I miss of Miami. Hello, St. Louis. Louis. It's one of those, right? Got to get it straight. St. Louis, thank you for being here. Hello, St. Paul, Minnesota, Nigeria, Manchester, and Tampa, Florida. A lot of Floridians checking in. Hey, Florida. Romania. Charlotte, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Georgia, San Diego, Nashville, Shady Spring, West Virginia, Sri Lanka, Houston. Lots going on there. There's so much going by. It's even hard to even mention. I see Billy and Mark and Aaron and Idris and Kristen. It's all there, ready to go. The Miami food is so good. I do miss it sometimes. I was just down there, I don't know, a few months ago. I went down, took some of the family, and you know, it was part of the family had not been to Miami before, so we went and saw like all of the Miami things. so you know, we have to go eat on Cayocho, we have to go to here, we have to go there. So it's those things. Drive by the old house, see what's going on. So far, so good. Taking my test on the 25th. That's Christian in the chat room. Best of luck with your test. It's coming up, what, in a week or so? That's great. That's fantastic. So this will be your last time through the live stream. I guess I should start the quiz, right? I should probably do my job now. Let's start the quiz. I'm busy talking. I talk in the chat room. We got things to talk about. Let's teach your pace. I don't need your name. Start her up. So now I got questions. So that's good. Do I have a presentation here? Yeah, I have not. You know, I've not looked through the presentation since that somewhat of a poor showing from me on there was one question that I didn't put everything in. When did this start? When did what start? Do you mean this live stream or this? Because those are two different questions. Just received my Security Plus books yesterday. Steven says, hopefully one of those is mine. That would be nice. If not, there's still an opportunity. So there you go. We gotta get some things going. We got a lot to go through. We're doing all security today. All security all the time. I do need to get my act together here. I think we're in pretty good. Link to the quiz? Sure. Go to professormesser.com/QA, because I'm not going to say that ever again today. No, that's not true. I'll say it every few moments, as it turns out. You'll be tired of me saying it. So that's how that works. Some other folks checking in. New York. A couple of New Yorks. Thanks for being here. Seattle is here. Nigeria. Botswana. The Bay Area. Not sure which bay. Could be multiple bays. Could be Old Bay. Could be Tampa Bay. Could be lots of bays. There's lots of bays in the U.S. Puerto Rico is here. Hello. Where in Puerto Rico? I want to know. England is here. Any recommendation for desk chairs? Oh, my gosh. We could have an entire 2-hour live stream on me researching desk chairs, and we still wouldn't have enough time. I am obsessive about getting down to the details of the things that I try to buy. And yes, I could just go, Herman Miller, we're done. We'll just get one of their, normal, whatever they call those chairs, the ones that are everywhere. We get that one, you're finished. But it's not I like one with a tall back. That's how it works for me. We haven't technically started yet. Me Hawkins in the chat room with the $10 super chat saying on October 1st, I passed my Security Plus exam with a 777. That's got to be soup. That's like 3 times lucky. On the first time around, because of your notes, exams, and videos, bought the bundle from your website. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Me Hawkins says, thank you so much, Professor Messer. No, thank you. Thank you for keeping the lights on. And congratulations on your A+. Most importantly, because you'll notice I wasn't there taking it. So you're the one that had to do the hard work. Congratulations on that. That's pretty awesome. I love hearing those stories. Thank you for the story, which is to me more important than the super chat. Maybe not, but close. It's a close first and second. We'll say that. I do appreciate the super chat, though. Thank you, Me Hawkins, and thank you for the story of the past. I always like hearing those success stories. They're so good. Jose in the chat room, $9.99 super chat, also coming off the top rope. Thank you, Jose. It's very kind of you. Jose says, thank you, Professor. I passed my exam because of you. Well, I think you were the one taking the exam. I'm not taking credit. I will not take credit for you passing your exam. I'm glad I was able to help. I will say that. The Security Plus is just a monster exam. It is just a big, I got to get in there and fight over it. So it's really on you at that point. Where's our iCloud? There we go. Looking for a green light. That looks good. We got a couple of minutes before we get started. I'm just sort of getting my ducks in a row, as it were. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. Landed my first, Jose says, landed my first IT job with my Security Plus. There you go. We don't even need to have a live stream at this point. I don't have to convince people anymore how powerful these certifications are. People in other parts of the internet, they go back and forth over really ridiculous arguments. You can't just get a job just with a single certificate. Well, of course not. Nobody's ever said that in the world, ever. You're the only one saying that. It is the ultimate of straw men when we start talking about certifications. There's a lot of arguments that come up that are made over things that no one ever said. That's not the point. Does it help? Oh, boy, does it help. It absolutely helps. Jim in the chat room with a $10 super chat. You guys are amazing. You guys are incredible. Thank you, Jim. Jim says, passed my Security Plus on the 9th. I couldn't have done it without your videos and practice exams. Thank you so much, Professor Messer. I am so glad to hear it, because that's why we make them. We make these so that people can get their certification, get a job, or get a better job. That's what we're trying to do. If you're trying to get into the Q&A and you're using the app, the room name is Professor Messer, all one word, ProfessorMesser. It's the domain name for my website. That'll get you there. We got lots to do here today. I need to figure out my other pieces on here. Okay, I think we're in pretty good shape. I'm queued up. How are we numbers-wise? How do I not have a clock with a second hand anywhere in here? Regardless, that's something for later. Now we're going to do a live stream. It's top of the hour. Let's get it started in here. We'll do a live stream right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2022 Professor Messer Security Plus study group. What happened there? I didn't know where I was for a moment. Security Plus study group. It's the SY0-601 Security Plus study group. It's our October version of our live stream where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and you online in real time, if you're watching live, can absolutely answer these along with everyone else and just see how well you know some of this Security Plus content. It's always a little fun to step through these questions. If you're not here live, you're watching on the replay, that's okay. You can still play along. Just follow along with what we're doing on the screen. You just won't have access to lock in your answer. That's one of the fun parts of what we do here is you are able to lock in your answer. I should probably show you how to do that, and I would had I pushed the right buttons. There we go. Now you can actually see how you can participate today. If you're watching this live, just pop open a new browser window and go to this URL, professormesser.com/QA, and that will bring you to a question. It's already sitting there. So there's plenty of things to do there. If you would like, there is an app for this as well. It's from a company called Socrative, because that's the service we use, is the Socrative app. You want the Socrative student app, not the Socrative teacher app. Teacher app's for me. The student app is the one for you. You will be asked for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. That's what you want to put in. And if you do all of that, and you did it the right way, you will see a question waiting for you. That question asks, which of the following would be the best way to provide non-repudiation? This sounds like a question from last month. It is a question from last month. Our first question of the study group is always a rewind question from last month. Which of the following would be the best way to provide non-repudiation? Would it be hash, sector-by-sector image, business continuity plan, digital signature, or SSO? Now, if you think you know the answer, you want to go to this link, professormesser.com/QA. Please do not put your answers in the chat room. Please do not put any hints in the chat room. We want to take this as if we are sitting at the exam. There's no resources available for us. We're going to select one of these answers and then go to the next question. So lock in what you think the answer is. We're going to come back to what we think that answer is in just a moment. Thanks for being here. We love doing these live streams. We're able to fit one in at least once a month. Of course, we have A+ and Network Plus throughout the month. When we're not here, we're also doing a lot of other things. You can find our weekly Security Plus pop quiz question is always posted to Twitter and Instagram. Simply visit those at professormesser.com/Twitter and professormesser.com/Instagram. Both the same question, just one has a pretty picture along with it. We also have our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to that, then you don't really see when we upload any of the new videos. So make sure you get those as well. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. In this first hour, I'll be asking you questions that come directly from the program. And in the second hour, I will take your questions from the chat room. There's already a few questions I see going by that are really, really good. So those of you that are putting questions in the chat room about what certification should I get, where should I go to get training, these are great questions. So just remember those for the after show, and we will absolutely address those then. There is a SY0-601 that I keep talking about. That is the version of the Security Plus exam that is currently available. It is a version of the exam that came out on November the 12th of 2020, and I estimate the retirement will probably be somewhere around May of 2024. That's an estimated retirement based on a best guess of it being available 3.5 months after the release date. That number and date can change, so always check back with the CompTIA website for the details. It's a single exam, thankfully. It's 90 minutes long. You get 90 minutes to answer up to 90 questions. They might ask you fewer than 90 questions, but that's a good one. You also have a passing score that you need to reach of 750 on a scale from 100 to 900. I know, it doesn't make sense, does it? It's a little weird in their grading, but that's okay. The only thing you have to concentrate on is getting the questions right and let CompTIA worry about the grading part. You just need to get a 750 when that is finally done. We also have a mixture of questions that you'll find on the exam. A lot of people think they're going to get a lot of multiple choice-based questions, but this exam also includes performance-based questions. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Of course, all of our videos, every minute of every training course that I create is available for you to watch for free on YouTube or on my website. It is completely free. There is no registration required. There's nothing behind a paywall. There's nothing extra you have to do. You just visit and watch. That's it. That's our goal, is to get you access to this information and make it as easy as possible. Of course, we have other materials that might help you with your studies. You're welcome to have a look at those: course notes, practice exams, and so much more, even downloadable versions of these videos. You can find it at professormesser.com/601SB. That is our success bundle, our 601 success bundle, and that will get you to the page that tells you a lot more on that, or you can follow the links at the top of the site to find out more about our course notes, practice exams, and other things. It's a great way to get some information you might need to help you along while you're watching these videos. I also want to let you know that we also have a replay of this live stream available in an audio-only format that I publish as a podcast. So you can find that by going to professormesser.com/podcast, and you'll find my A+, Network+, and Security+ study groups are there. Just add that into your podcast listening program, and it will simply download those immediately when they are available. There's also a video replay of this immediately available after we're done. It just gets processed by YouTube after a few minutes, and they make it available on the YouTube website. Nothing I even have to do. It's just automatic. You'll also notice that in the YouTube video description, there are timestamps. Those timestamps don't happen automatically. Thankfully, I have a fantastic marketing manager, Lori, who's watching this replay. Hey, Lori. Everybody say hi to Lori. She is the one putting together all of these timestamps in the descriptions when people are asking questions, so that you can find exactly what you're looking for just by clicking on the timestamp. It's fantastic. It's so good to have that available. Something you should also use across all of the live streams that we happen to do. When we're not here creating a live stream, we have plenty that we are talking to people about on our chat. You can join us on Discord. Go to professormesser.com/Discord, and you can log in there. And usually someone's in there almost 24 hours a day, it seems, doing something. So if you have a question about anything you happen to have, anything you're doing, questions about the certification, questions about a topic from the certification, there's usually someone around who can help you with that. Find out more at professormesser.com/Discord. It's a great set of folks that are in there. We really do have an excellent community, and the folks that are on that Discord are more than happy to help. They're really great folks that are there hanging out. I also want to let you know that eventually you're going to need to take this exam. And you could, of course, go to this CompTIA website and pay full price for the voucher that allows you to take this exam. But, of course, you're not going to be in very good shape if you knew that there was a discount available on the Professor Messer website. Why would you pay full price for a voucher? If you are in the U.S. or Canada, sorry, outside the U.S. and Canada, we don't have vouchers for those quite yet. But if you are in the U.S. or Canada, there are discounted vouchers available on my site at professormesser.com/vouchers. And it's nothing you have to do. There's no special code, nothing you have to add as an extension in your browser or hunt around Google for a coupon of some kind. It's just already discounted. So that's a great place to go as well. And if you buy the voucher from my site, not only is it discounted, you're already saving money. I'm going to give you even more. You'll get a free copy of my CompTIA Exam Hacks ebook. This is an ebook that has tips and tricks for things you can do for studying and techniques you can use during your exam that might get you a few extra points. You can't buy my Exam Hacks ebook. It is only available in one of my success bundles or when you purchase a voucher. Find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. We got a lot to go through today, so let's start with this first rewind question where I asked you which of the following would be the best way to provide non-repudiation. And your possible answers were hash, sector-by-sector image, business continuity plan, digital signature, or SSO. Now, if you have locked in your answer, a number of you have already put that in. Let's see how you answered. 73% of you say that it is digital signature, and you would be absolutely correct. That is the right answer. And I notice our percentage this time a little bit better than our percentage that we did last time. So that's where we want to go, is digital signature is what we were looking for. It would not be a hash. A hash would certainly allow us to check the integrity of what we've received, but it would not be able to confirm that the information we received really came from the person who we believe sent it. That is the part about repudiation. Can we repudiate where this information came from? No, we cannot, because they put a digital signature on it. There is no repudiation that you can do. It's non-repudiatable. Is that a word? I don't know. We just made it up. And so putting a digital signature not only confirms the integrity of the information that we've received, but it confirms to everyone that this really did originate with the person who wrote this original document. That is what a digital signature does for us, and it's a great thing to have if you're working on something dealing with non-repudiation. This was indeed a question from last month, so if you'd like more details on non-repudiation and how that works, non-reputable, I don't know if that's exactly the word. I was looking for something more complicated to say. That's a little too easy to say, so it's not going to work for me. But that is what we're trying to do, is confirm that the person who sent that really was the person who sent it, and that anybody would be able to check and confirm that as well. And that's the great part about this, is having a digital signature where you can lock that in. That is the right answer. The digital signature, 75% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well, I want to quickly, before we go into our performance-based question of the month, I want to thank Salam in the chat room with a $4.99 super chat, who says, passed my Security Plus a couple weeks ago. Congratulations. Use your courses and your exam practices. Thank you, Professor. Now I have A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. You got the triple play. Congratulations. Thank you for the super chat, and congratulations on all of your certifications. That's 4 separate exams, a lot of studying, and ended up with the Security Plus a couple of weeks ago. Congratulations again. Also want to thank Beats by Quez in the chat room. $10 super chat. Hey, Professor, passed Security Plus on the 14th. Your YouTube content, notes, practice exams were pivotal to my success. I could never thank you enough. Now on to A+ and Network Plus. And those are good ones to have. Combine all of these together, put together the best rounded set of knowledge that you can present to a potential employer. I think that's a good strategy. Thank you also for the super chat, and congratulations on your Security Plus. And lastly, Scion in the chat room with the $5 super chat. Passed 601 Security Plus exam using your video materials. Thank you very much, Professor Messer. Actually, you said thank you so much. Not very much, but so much. It's the same thing. That's one that I'm so happy to hear these stories of earning the certification. Security Plus is not a easy certification to walk into. So congratulations on that as well. If you ever get into working through other pieces of this, this is an exam that I think if you ever get into the details of this exam, it is a big, intense exam. If you've taken the A+ and Network Plus already, you've probably seen Security Plus is a little bit larger. Joseph in the chat room even says, taking Security Plus this Friday, I have A+ and Network Plus. So Joseph, thank you for the $10 super chat. And myself, and I think everyone in the chat room, is sending you some very good vibes. We want you to pass that Security Plus exam on Friday. Best of luck with that. It should be a good one. Let's go to our performance-based question of the month. This is a question that I ask because the first set of questions you get on your exam will not be multiple choice. That question we just did about digital signatures, that was a multiple choice question. You could have guessed and got the right answer. 20% chance out of the 5 options there. On the exam, though, the first handful of questions that you will get is a set of questions that are not multiple choice. They will be anything but multiple choice. They could be drag and drop. They might be a fill in the blank question. They might pop you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I wanted to give you what I think might be a good performance-based question that you could work on. And this one I want you to do with the idea that there is, of course, questions that will ask you to do something at a command line. So make sure the commands you use come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Our performance-based question of the month asks, retrieve the HTML of www.google.com from the command line. That's what I want you to retrieve, is the HTML, I'm not going to give you any more hints than this, of www.google.com from the command line. So what would you type in at the command line to do this? And then we'll talk about in a bit why we would do this. What is our motivation? We need to understand more about this person. Why are they typing HTML? Not motivation of the person typing it, the motivation of doing it and the results that we would get. We'll talk about that as well. What would you type in at the command line to retrieve the HTML of www.google.com. And I want to say so much more, because this is something that is definitely an important set of skills, is being able to maneuver around at the command line. And perhaps even more importantly, if you get into this situation where you are working on a problem, you've got a command line in front of you, now what do? You know, you could go in many different directions, and it's important to have some knowledge of all of these utilities so that you know exactly where to go next. This is one of those scenarios where would you go? We're going to Google this. We're right in the middle of troubleshooting a problem. We're having this huge security event. I need you to grab the HTML of that web page. Why are you Googling something? You know, that's the challenge. That's what we're trying to do here. So see if you can lock in your answer. Number of you, it's very slow. Stop Googling it. Don't Google these questions either. Go through the process of trying to put this in here. Do I have a favorite command to run just for fun? The one that I tend to run quite a bit on my network is MTR. MTR is sort of a combination ping / trace route / multiple views on the screen that constantly is doing a trace route to a site. And MTR is a fantastic tool to use for that. If we have time in the after show, I'll show you that. Fantastic utility, and it comes in handy, especially on a network where you're having intermittent connectivity or you're concerned about the health of a particular link or router along the way. Great tool to use, MTR. Multi-trace route, I think it is, something like that. It's one of those. This is the problem. I was mentioning this to someone earlier, is that we even get to a point in our industry where we use the acronym so much we forget the words. So my problem isn't knowing what acronym I need to use for these answers. It's remembering what do those acronyms mean again? Because ultimately the name is not as important as what it does. And I think CompTIA believes that as well, looking at their questions. Let's see. Well, we can't see how you did with these questions, with this question. I'm going to quickly sort of scan through the answers. Some of you say you would use ping. Some of you say you would use whois. Some of you say the NS lookup command. A lot of you, though, have the right answer. A lot of you have typed in what you believe the right answer to be. Some of you had some other options in here which actually are correct, but not exactly the one I was looking for, but pretty close. The one that probably, and if you go back to the exam objectives, there are different ways to do this. In fact, there are multiple ways to do this, but the easy way to do this is to bring up something and use the curl command, C-U-R-L. You can see this is my desktop where I ran right at the top. Let me zoom up on, here we go. There's the command, curl www.google.com. And I just hit enter, and then I hit enter, and all of this showed up. There is the HTML that makes up www.google.com. That's it. There's other ways to do this. There are other commands that you might use to make this happen. After all, this is IT. We come up with all kinds of secondary and third and fourth types of ways to do this. But this is a very easy way with a single command to retrieve a web page and show you the results of the HTML in that web page. This is very, very simple to do. Now, you could use the NC command, the netcat command, but then you would have to type in, once you connect to www.google.com, you would need to type in the get command that normally would precede that. So not quite as seamless as simply typing in curl. That's the easy way to do it. Now, why would you use this? What is good with using curl? Curl, by the way, stands for client URL. It's a way to easily retrieve information from these services, and it's raw data. And there's some interesting things inside the raw data, especially on a web page, that you might be able to use, especially if you're automating a script. So you might go to a website, you might retrieve some data, you might look for a particular bit of data that's inside of that, and then you'd be in really good shape at that point for finding that information. That's how I look at this, is now I have the raw data. I can manipulate that raw data. I can search through the raw data. I can collect the data. I can look for a particular variable and see what it's set to right now versus perhaps variables that I might see later. That's the way to do it. Now, I did mention that this is from the command line, so going to Chrome isn't going to help you very much. And I guess you could load up something like links at the command line and bring it up, but that's showing you the web page and not showing you the source of the web page from the command line. So in my case, I think curl is probably the easiest, fastest way to do this, and it certainly fits with what we do or things we're looking for that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. That is your performance-based question of the month. This curl command, it's handy. And at times it can really save you, especially if you're trying to see, is that website available? Can I pull any information from the HTML? Can I automate anything that's inside of that? This is the utility that you would like to use. That's the way you make it work. Let's go now past performance-based questions, and now let's do some multiple choice-based questions. First, I want to thank Azar in the chat room with the 20 MYR super chat. He says, I'm a part-time trainer, had my Security Plus earlier this year, inspired to plan and take the CTT Plus virtual because of your sessions. That's a certified trainer that's here. And here's a token of thanks. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And it's always nice to hear of what's the next thing. Now that you've got Security Plus, what are you doing with it? We don't just get these certifications because we like to. I guess some of us do. But we usually are getting these certifications because we're working towards some goal. We're trying to get to a job, a better job, or something else that we're looking and striving towards. And this Security Plus is something that whatever we're striving towards can look at that and think, okay, you've now got the information you need to level up in this industry, and a great way to do it. Also, Martin in the chat room with a 50 SEK super chat. Thanks for these videos. Doing the exam tomorrow. Okay. Feeling good about it. Thanks to Professor Messer. Wish me luck. Myself and on behalf of everyone here, wish you all the luck going into the exam. We'll all send you good vibes. You're going to do great. Get those exam objectives. That's your last 24 hours. Go through every bullet of the exam objectives. Make sure you can explain every single one of those bullets to someone else, and best of luck. And thank you also for the super chat from both of you. Let's do a multiple choice-based question. I have another one for you. Here it is. This multiple choice-based question asks, here, I'll click on my side so I can read along with you. Before access is allowed through a VPN, a user's computer is checked for the latest antivirus signatures and security patches. Which of the following describes this process? Is it multi-factor authentication, directory services, data loss prevention, posture assessment, penetration testing? Some of you may recognize the question from last month, which went by at about 2 seconds, but had only 2 answers. So I added a few answers, and we'll see if we can step through this. If you think you know the answer, follow the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Let's go through this again. It certainly has a good style to it. Before access is allowed through a VPN, a user's computer is checked for the latest antivirus signatures and security patches. Which of the following describes this process? Is it multi-factor authentication, directory services, data loss prevention, posture assessment, and penetration testing? If you think you know the answer, there's your link on the screen, professormesser.com/QA. Lock it in. See what you think this one happens to be. It's right here. I have the answer. I'm looking at it. If that helps, I'm sending you the vibes. That's usually how it works. I usually write these questions over a weekend before, sometimes a couple of weeks before. This one was last minute. I think I finished all of these up on Monday, and we're shooting this on a Wednesday. So these are pretty fresh. These are pretty updated. I went through them definitely this time to have more than 2 possible answers available. A 50-50 on these isn't what you're going to find on the exam. Usually on the exam, you'll find 4 answers. I know that a lot of the questions you see from me have 5 answers on them. I tend to do that to make them a little more difficult because there are more things to choose from, as long as we know that these are 5 legitimate answers. The problem you run into is that there are questions on the exam with 5 answers. So it's not that you won't find any, but I think the vast majority of multiple choice questions on the Security Plus exam will have 4 answers. So maybe it'll be easier when you actually get into the exam because you won't have so much to read. You only have 4 to choose from. It's a faster decision process, and you can go through that. If you have a look at my practice exams book, we'll talk about that later on in the live stream. All of the practice exam questions in here tend to be like the exam. So those tend to have 4 answers associated with them. Let's see how you answered this one. The question asked, before access is allowed through a VPN, a user's computer is checked for the latest antivirus signatures and security patches. Which of the following describes this process? Is it multi-factor authentication, directory services, data loss prevention, posture assessment, or penetration testing? It's got to be one of those. Let's see what you answered. We'll show the results. Not even close. 74% of you say it's posture assessment, and we have what seems to be, relatively speaking, it's a 4-way tie for second place, all single digits. 9% said multi-factor authentication, 6% said directory services, 6% said data loss prevention, and 5% said penetration testing. So you either remember this one from last month, or maybe you just knew it already. Maybe that was a gimme. Maybe that one was too easy. Posture assessment is when we have a look at somebody's device and determine, is it really working? Does it have the things loaded on it? Does it have the proper security to be able to allow it onto our network? That's what a posture assessment does. And in the chat room, you're right, most often a posture assessment traditionally has been associated with a network access control type scenario, a NAC type system. But posture assessments aren't limited to NAC. Posture assessments can be used by just a VPN client. There's a good example. Back in the day, when I was a systems engineer for Palo Alto Networks, we would install our VPN solution because it's built into the next generation firewall. And then we have posture assessments built into the firewall. So in that case, our posture assessment was coming from the firewall, which ultimately was acting as a VPN concentrator. That's what the answer happened to be. So we check it. Does it have all the right applications? Does it have the right antivirus? Is that antivirus up to date? Does it have everything we would need to have in it? That's really the important part. So when you get into these and start working through them, this is where we're going. This is what we're focusing on, is really having some way to allow or disallow someone to access to our systems based on what their security posture happens to be. What if somebody had a laptop, had no antivirus, had nothing going on? That's what this comes from. So you'll find that posture assessments are used in many different parts of our organizations, usually the part that lets you in. That's why VPNs is a very common place to have that there. So maybe that can give you some perspective as to why you might have a posture assessment, why you would use it, and how it would be used, how it would be applied. Would it be in your next generation firewall? Maybe it's a standalone NAC. These NACs there was a lot of buzz around NAC when they first came out, but it's a lot of moving parts and very few people are able to implement them properly. We tend to see more posture assessment, quite honestly, in a VPN concentrator when it comes right down to it. Someone should fix that. Someone should make a NAC easier to use, and it wouldn't be a big deal to go through that. Before we go to our next question, I want to thank Heather in the chat room with the $5 super chat. Heather says, I passed Security Plus this month. Thanks for your videos and website. You're absolutely welcome. Congratulations on your Security Plus. Thank you also for the super chat. We do appreciate that. Anything to keep this crazy experiment going, we appreciate it. And I want to thank Manny in the chat room with the $10 super chat. He says, I can't thank you enough, Professor Messer. Watch your videos over and over and took the practice test multiple times. Now going for my AWS Cloud Practitioner before the end of the year. That's a nice one to add on to Security Plus, some type of cloud certification. And if you're looking to get into a cloud type position, that's a good combo. Security is for everybody. So we can apply security to the cloud. We can apply security to our servers. We can apply security to our workstations. Regardless of what you do in IT, you're going to need to know security. Thank you, Manny, for the $10 super chat. Congratulations on your Security Plus. Let's see if we can get another question in. Here's our next question. This one a little directed. Did I have a blood test recently? Why did I make it a blood test? In any case, here's the question. Which of these would best describe a database containing the results of a blood test? Is it, Here they are. QoS, PHI, BPDU, DRM, sticks. There's only one of these that's like a word that I can say. Which of these would best describe a database containing the results of a blood test? Is it QoS, PHI, BPDU, DRM, or sticks? It's got to be one of those, right? All of those are real things. They're not just a random set of letters that I put together and stuck into a question. They are all from your Security+ exam objectives. And so if there is a abbreviation on this list, I guess it would be an abbreviation on this list that you do not recognize, make a note of it. Then we'll know. We'll know exactly what it is. A and an are the biggest problems with I run into with abbreviations. QoS, it's AQoS, it's APHI. Do we have one that it doesn't have an N at the beginning? So when you have an abbreviation where you're giving the letters of the abbreviation, or it has a sound like it is and a vowel, then you have to put an in front of it, even though it may not be a vowel in the actual letter. Weird, huh? That's how that works, figuring out the details. Lock in your answer. Go to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. A number of you are already locking this one in. I think you might know this one. Is it a gimme? I never know, because I don't see the answers until you see the answers. So it's a surprise for all of us as we go through these. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, which of these would best describe a database containing the results of a blood test? Is it QoS, PHI, BPDU, DRM, or sticks? And we can look at the answers again, kind of a gimme. 78% of you say it is PHI is what it is. 11%, double digits, is BPDU. We've got 6% that say it is sticks, 4% that say DRM, and 1% that said QoS. Well, obviously, in this case, PHI is really what we were looking for. PHI a little different than PII, which would be personally identifiable information, which, of course, can be sensitive information, your name, your address, your phone number, things like that. But when it is something medical, when it's something like a set of test results, for example, this would fall under the container of PHI for protected health information. Why it's not personal health information, I don't know. I think health information in itself sort of says that it's protected. A little redundant in the name, isn't it? But this would be your healthcare records. This would be the results of a test. This would be insurance information or anything else relating to healthcare is PHI. And indeed, pretty much all of you chose PHI. It was answer B. 78% of you got that one absolutely correct. BPDU, a bridge protocol data unit, is about as far away as you can get from a medical result. The bridge protocol data unit is a protocol used by switches generally to participate in a spanning tree protocol, or STP. So if you're trying to prevent loops on your network, you would want to enable spanning tree on your switches, at which point those switches will begin to talk to each other using BPDU as the protocol. So that's the time we would see BPDU. Has nothing to do with blood tests, although it has B, maybe blood pressure data unit. No, that's not what that is. It's bridge protocol data unit. So that's one that has nothing to do with blood tests or anything medical. It's all about preventing loops on our network. There is sticks, which is a type of data that is transferred. It's vulnerability data that can be transferred between systems. It's a very standard format for transferring that. In fact, the sticks data is transferred over taxi. There's a whole video, or at least a slide or two on a video, that talks all about the process of doing that. So it would not be, in this case, sticks. Would not be DRM, digital rights management. DRM is commonly used to allow or not allow an application to run, depending on the rights assigned to that particular device. And then quality of service, or QoS, only 1% of you chose that one. Would not be the right answer. In this case, pretty solid. Pretty much everybody said, oh, that's PHI. That's what it is. That's what we should have chosen. 78% of you did choose it. You were spot on with that one. We need to make these questions harder. Let's see if it gets harder going forward. We're going to find out in just a moment if we can make this a little bit more difficult. I want to first let you know, though, and I mentioned this earlier, the Security Plus exam is huge. It's a big exam, bigger than any other Security Plus exam before it. And you'll find in my video course is 177 videos for Security Plus. Yes, 177. I remember making every single one of them. Over 21 hours of detailed Security Plus information in that course. I wish everybody had time to go through every video, write down every bit of text that's on every slide, capture everything that's in every graphic and every chart that's there. But when you get into this scenario, you'll find that's too much. I don't have time to sit through all of these videos, or I just need to pick certain pieces of information. But wouldn't it be nice to have everything in one place? And indeed, it can be through my Professor Messer Security Plus course notes. The course notes are designed to give you a view of everything by video. They make a great companion when you're watching the videos because it is all set in video by video by video format with all of the text, all of the important graphics, all of the charts and tables. They are all in the set of course notes. And if I go to the very end, we're looking at 121 pages of course notes. Is it a lot of course notes? It is. There's both a digital and a physical version. The physical version getting pretty thick there with 2 C's. It's really getting big. There's a lot in there. Obviously, the printed version is exactly the same as the digital version. And if you buy the printed version, I will give you the digital version for free while you're waiting on this one to get delivered. A great way to have all of your video content in one single place. And of course, it's another great way to support what we do here. Find out more about it by going to professormesser.com/601cn or follow the links at the top menu to find the Security Plus course notes. And I want to thank those of you in the chat room. You've already mentioned, I got the course notes, I got the success bundle, I got everything, I passed my exam. Those are the stories we like to hear. So thank you so much for your support of what we do here. And for those of you that are interested, follow the link, professormesser.com/601cn, to learn more about those course notes, practice exams, and many other things. We do deliver anywhere in the world with these books. So wherever you happen to be, as you're checking out, it will give you information on tracking and the costs of shipping during the checkout process. So you can find out more about those. And I want to thank all of you for your continuing support with those course notes. Let's do some more. There's a few places in the world currently having some conflicts that perhaps we will not ship to. So I ship to 99% of the world. We'll go that way. Let's do another question. This one asks, an attacker is using an on-path attack to gain access to data over an encrypted connection. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it cross-site scripting, logic bomb, SSL stripping, directory traversal, or SQL injection? That is the question. An attacker is using an on-path attack to gain access to data over an encrypted connection. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it cross-site scripting, logic bomb, SSL stripping, directory traversal, or SQL injection? You think you know the answer? Follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. A number of you lock them in quick. So I'm wondering, is this going to be another gimme, or is this going to be one that's going to be a little more challenging? We'll find out. All of these are real things. All of these are from your exam objectives. So make sure that you're familiar with all of these. Yes, for those of you in the chat room, some folks said, oh, is the video frozen? Is it good? We did check for video frozen. I told you if that number 3% stays 3%, we're good. So we are at 3%. And historically, we're doing pretty good at 3%. So over the last minute or two, those numbers look good too. So not a problem sending data to YouTube, but you might be having a problem receiving data from YouTube. That's a different kind of problem though. Refresh your browser. I think you'll be okay. Remember, I'm not sending you this video. YouTube is sending you this video. I'm sending one set of video over to YouTube, and they're taking it from there and sending it to you. So that might help you if you're trying to troubleshoot those things. If you're curious on the mic that we're using, you can find out everything that we're using here. I need to update some of those, but the mic, the mixer, and other things are listed under professormesser.com/studio. If you'd like to learn more about those, you can go out to professormesser.com/studio and have a look at those. Let's see how you did with this question. I'm very curious on what you may have chosen on this question. It asked, an attacker is using an on-path attack to gain access to data over an encrypted connection, which, quite honestly, if you know your stuff, that just gave it away. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it cross-site scripting, logic bomb, SSL stripping, directory traversal, or SQL injection? 66% of you say SSL stripping and nothing else comes even close. We got 14% that say cross-site scripting, 10% that said directory traversal, and then 8% said SQL injection and 1% said logic bomb. Well, the on-path attack was probably the giveaway on this one, because an on-path attack is what is used by an HTTP downgrade attack, or what we commonly call SSL stripping. It combines the man-in-the-middle functionality that we don't talk about anymore, and we call it an on-path attack instead of man-in-the-middle, but same idea. We're sitting in the middle of this conversation, we're watching traffic go back and forth, and we are modifying the data in real time as it goes back and forth between these two devices. That's how involved this particular exploit is. This is quite an attack to try to make this work. In fact, it doesn't always work because of a number of different things. It has to be just the right set of circumstances, just the right set of things to be able to make that happen. And an SSL stripping attack is certainly a very common problem that you will run into. So you've got on one side your website visitor, the other side is a web server itself, and in the middle is the attacker. And they're going to rewrite those URLs as someone does a GET command to a web server. They will effectively become a proxy in the middle and send that request directly to the web server. And then we'll see, because this web server is configured, no, we're not going to do HTTP, we're going to do HTTPS. We're going to tell you this page isn't here. We move the page over to the encrypted side, but the attacker doesn't tell the original sender. The victim has no idea that message went back. The attacker says, oh, okay, well, give me the encrypted version of the page, to which the server says, well, of course, I'm glad you asked for that. Here it is. That's what we would use. And then it gets stripped of its encryption. There's the SSL stripping part, and sent to the website visitor, the victim machine, as if nothing happened in between. And at that point, they can log in with their username and password. We see everything we log in for them. Now we have their username and password. That's the way SSL stripping works, and that's why it is such a very bad type of problem. Now, the on-path attack is referring to the part where we are in the middle of the conversation. There's a path between the website visitor and the web server, and we are on that path. We're in the middle of it. So that's why we call it an on-path attack. We don't really call attacks off-path attacks, oddly enough, but you certainly could. Anything that isn't in the middle is an off-path attack. Don't do that. Don't tell anyone that you have an off-path attack. Not a real thing. We don't ever say that. In fact, we rarely say on-path attack. We usually just say we're in the middle of the conversation and how that works. This is a very, very common way to collect data that we think should be encrypted, but for some reason is not. But think of all the things that have to go right. You have to be in the middle of the conversation. How'd you get there? Did you manage to break into a link? Did you do an ARP poisoning? That's assuming that you can get into a connection and they would allow that piece of it. Those are real problems that you have to figure out. So this is not a trivial attack to be able to implement, but if you are able to implement this attack, it's very effective in what it does. We also have to think about the devices on both sides. What if they never asked for the non-encrypted version of the page? Well, then you'd never be able to be in the middle of this, because the browser on the victim's machine would get a message immediately saying something has changed with this. Somebody in the middle has modified the certificate. It's not what we were expecting. So an on-path attack has a very specific set of criteria to be able to do SSL stripping in the middle of this. But very valid if you've got someone gaining access to the data over this encrypted connection. Of course, it's going to be SSL stripping. Cross-site scripting is a great way to gain access to data on someone's machine or gain access to another device based on the trust that's associated with someone's machine. But cross-site scripting is not going to be able to gain data over an encrypted connection. That's not what it does. So you have to be in the middle of the connection to gain access to that data, and cross-site scripting I guess you could have a very complex set of circumstances with cross-site scripting that hopefully maybe run some JavaScript that ultimately downloads some code that's going to allow you to do that, but you just went down the entire set of if. The question asked, which of the following would best describe this attack? So cross-site scripting, although functional and technically could possibly be used to perform this attack, it would not be the best way to do that. See how that works? That's very common on the exam, is that there could be answers that technically could be correct, but you want the one that is easiest to implement. You want the one that doesn't create any problems or changes. This is the challenge with those. So cross-site scripting is certainly one of those. Now, we have also directory traversal. That is a way to get onto an operating system and then be able to move around that operating system where normally you would be restricted. Directory traversal does not allow us to gain access to data over an encrypted connection using an on-path attack. Not what we would be doing. We have SQL injection. SQL injection, a very common attack type because there's so many SQL servers. But we're not injecting anything into this middle of this equation. In fact, you would really run the SQL injection from the visitor's machine. You wouldn't even need an attacker in the middle to do SQL injection. So not what we were looking for either. And then a logic bomb effectively is looking for a time and day to be able to perform some type of function. So there's a trigger, and then there's the thing that it does after the trigger. Only 1% of you chose that one, and you were absolutely correct in not choosing it. The correct answer, SSL stripping, for this particular scenario where it's an on-path attack and you're gaining access to encrypted information. Very, very well done. I think we're all doing extremely well on these questions. Let's do another one. Got some time. This next question asks, if I pull this one up, there we go. Which of the following would describe a key exchange occurring beyond the scope of the network? Is that symmetric, certificate, perfect forward secrecy, hashing, or out of band? Which of the following would describe a key exchange occurring beyond the scope of the network? Is it symmetric, certificate, perfect forward secrecy, hashing, or out of band? If you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll figure out the details. I want to thank Taylor in the chat room with the $5 super chat. Taylor says, just got A+ certified on Sunday. Congratulations. I'm curious to know, Taylor, if you took the 1100 series or the 1000 series, especially since the 1000 series of A+ is retired in a day. Isn't today the 19th? So I did, or the 18th. So yeah, the 19th. So tomorrow you are going to have the retirement date for the older, the 1000 series A+. Taylor says, thanks so much for all the study materials you had. It helped so much. I'm so glad to hear it. Congratulations on your A+. Doesn't matter which version you got. You're certified for 3 years. So congratulations on your new A+, and thank you also for the super chat. Also want to thank Steven in the chat room with the $2 super chat. Steven says, I passed my Security+ last week. Thank you. Well, congratulations on your Security+. I think that's great. Whenever you're working through these exams, it is no small thing to pass your Security+. So I know what went into that. Congratulations, and also thank you for that super chat. Let's do some other things that we were going to work through. We haven't really looked at the answer on this one. We'll have to break those down and see what's in there. Let's see how we did with this question. Again, it asked, which of the following would describe a key exchange occurring beyond the scope of the network? Is it symmetric, certificate, perfect forward secrecy, hashing, or out of band? Let's see how you did with this one. Finally, I have a question that maybe had us think for a moment. Although we did have a majority, 53% of us say it is out of band. 21% of us say it is certificate. 12% said perfect forward secrecy. 10% say symmetric. And 4% said hashing. Well, the real key in this question is how it is getting this particular piece beyond the scope of the network. That's what we want to know, is whenever you work through these, how do you send a key to someone and not do it over the network? That's not really what we're looking for either. So where would we be able to give you the key, but it not be on the network? It sort of now is becoming very apparent, isn't it? That we were looking for something that was a challenge. If we aren't going to send it across the network, how do we get it to you? The problem is we may not trust the network. We may not trust the communication on the network. We want to find some other way to get this key to you. We often think of the old movies where they're trying to get the papers from one side of the country, or maybe the papers to another country, and they've got a briefcase and they handcuff the briefcase to the person who's delivering the papers, which seems a little weird and certainly doesn't add any additional security, really. But that is a very valid way to get that data to another party without sending that data across the internet. So absolutely what you would find. It's different than the in-band key exchange that we do all the time. When you connected to YouTube to watch this video, when you connected to Professor Messer to watch this video, you're on an HTTPS connection. That means there is encryption. That means there is an encryption key. But that encryption key was sent over the network, or it was derived without sending that data over the network, but that wasn't one of the options here. We're talking about exchanging the key beyond the auspices of a network connection, and having out-of-band key exchange solves that problem. There's very often you do this. This isn't with an encryption key, but we have at times, if you ever wanted to confirm a set of encryption keys with someone, let's say you both are using PGP, you send your PGP key to someone else, and you want to confirm they received the right key. Every key has a hash or a fingerprint associated with it. You would call that person on the phone and you would say, hey, and you recognize each other's voices, or you would see that person outside of work, and you say, oh, I sent you that key. Is the fingerprint that you received on that key this fingerprint? And they would look at the key and they go, yes, that's the fingerprint. Then we know the key got there and nobody in the middle grabbed the key and sent a fake one instead. That does happen. So having that confirmation is really important. And if you can confirm it out of band, then you know that you both are a little bit safer than worrying about something happening across the network. Out of band key exchange, or really out of band communication, is what we were looking for here. And that is indeed the right answer. If you answered E, out of band, that's what we were looking for. We also have a number of people, 21% said a certificate is what we would use to provide a key exchange beyond the scope of a network. Generally speaking, our certificates do not have a key inside of them that we would use for this, but the certificate is being sent over the network. We often refer to these certificates as digital certificates. If it is a digital certificate, then we're probably going to send it over the network, or we're going to copy it, I guess, to a USB key, put it in a briefcase, handcuff it to our hand, hop on the train, and a mystery will happen. But it is not certificate in this particular case. 13% of you said perfect forward secrecy, PFS. PFS is commonly used to have a key that is only used temporarily. That way, if somebody later on wanted to decrypt all of the data, they would have to find the key just for that little section of data, and not a key that's used across all data that's communicating to a particular server. So PFS would not be what we're looking for either. PFS itself does not necessarily involve a key exchange, but often does, and it's usually on the network. Symmetric key exchange, or symmetric keys, are only a way to describe keys that are identical on both sides of the conversation. It doesn't talk about how the keys got there to begin with. There's many different ways to do that, but we can step through those. And lastly, hashing. Hashing doesn't involve key exchange at all, so that would not be what we would be using either. In fact, the hashing has no key associated with it. I guess the key in hashing is the input that you put into it, sort of a reverse scenario in that particular piece. But hashing would not be how a key have anything to do with key exchange outside the scope of a network. The best description for that in this list, out-of-band communication, out-of-band key exchange, 54% of you got that one absolutely correct. If anybody is collecting continuing education unit credits, I would be glad to email you a single email that confirms that you are here. It is for 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. Webinar category CEUs can be used along with, I guess you'd need 50 of those, 50, to renew your Security Plus certification. And I think you can only collect 10 webinar category CEUs, if I recall properly. But at least I can give you 10 of those if you watch 10 of these videos. The way that you would earn that CEU is to follow these directions. If you do not follow these directions, you don't earn the CEU. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. On that Contact Us link, put your name, put your email address. In the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, out of band. Out of band is the super secret code word of the month. And then on a line underneath that, you can really put anything you'd like. If you'd like to put a note in there, I'm the one reading through all of these. So if you'd like to send a note to me, if you'd like to put anything else in there, if you'd like to tell me the story of your certification that you earned, I love to read every single one of these that you send to me. I do get a number of these, so I'm not able to respond back to everything that I receive, but I am able to respond back with a CEU. So send all of that there. Again, go to ProfessorMesser.com, click the Contact Us link, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, put something like that it is the October 2022 Security Plus. That's all you have to put in there so I know where it is. And in the body of the message, put the words out of band. Out of band is what we're looking for. That is your super secret code word of the month. We got more to do. Let's do another question. Step through this. And if anybody, there were some people in the chat room wanted to clarify a few different things, we can always do that in the after show. If you'd like to go through any one of these, I can step through this. Our next question asks this. The question asks, a security administrator has disabled WPS on a wireless network. What is the most likely reason for this configuration change? Is it increased performance, updating the WPS2, reduce frequency conflicts, reduce output power, or cryptographic vulnerability? A security administrator has disabled WPS on a wireless network. What is the most likely reason for this configuration change? Is it increased performance, updating to WPS2, reduce frequency conflicts, reduce output power, or cryptographic vulnerability? If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. It's got to be one of these, right? We'll figure out the details. How often do we do one of these? We do one of these for Security Plus at least once a month. So it's always available. You can see when our next is going to be by going to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar. We'll do that. Figure out the details. This one is an important one. You know, cryptography and wireless and performance and power and frequencies, they are all things we have to deal with when you're on a wireless network. But there's a lot of configuration options on a wireless network. So what is it that we want to find? What is it that we need to resolve in a wireless network? So we have to know what these things do and how they work. Whenever you get into these, you'll notice that I didn't ask you, what is WPS? What do those letters stand for? You will never get a trivia question like that. I call those trivia questions. You'll never get a question that easy on your exam. They will not ask you, here's an abbreviation. What does the abbreviation stand for? You will never get it on your exam. Instead, they're going to ask you technology questions about this particular thing. So that's the important part of this, is knowing, well, I got WPS on my wireless network. We're disabling it. What does that mean? Why did we disable it? What happened? So that's why. That's why as I look through these and try to figure out the details, it's helpful if you understand how these technologies are used. If you're spending a lot of time on flashcards looking at abbreviation and its full name, you may be wasting a lot of your time. That's not the best use of your time. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, us in the industry sort of forget these abbreviations. We forget what they stand for. We just use the abbreviation. And we know what the abbreviation does. It's effectively now turned into the name. That's why we no longer have a company called Federal Express. The company's called FedEx. That's the way we work here, at least in this house. That's the way we work here. Let's see how you did with this one. A security administrator has disabled WPS on a wireless network. What is the most likely reason for this configuration change? Is it increased performance, updating to WPS2, reduce frequency conflicts, reduce output power, or cryptographic vulnerability? let's see how we did with this one. 65% of us say WPS, we don't use it because it is vulnerable at a cryptographic level. 18% said, no, we're updating it to WPS2, which doesn't actually exist. I made that one up. I don't make up a lot of answers. That one I made up because it made sense if you were having an encryption type and you're probably thinking of WPA, and yes, you were, and oh, I fell into the trap. And that's what 18% of you thought or are thinking right now. 12% of you said reduce frequency conflicts, which it does not. We'll talk more about that. 4% said increase performance, and 1% said reduce output power. The answer is you're using WPS Wi-Fi protected setup. This was originally designed to simplify the process of connecting to a wireless network. That's because if you remember back in the day, you in some wireless networks even had to put everything in hex to put the password in. It was rather ridiculous. Obviously, we've simplified things now. In fact, you go to the dentist and they tell you, oh, your Wi-Fi password is good teeth 2. Okay, good teeth. Everybody knows how to type in their password now. We sort of circumvented the complexities of wireless networks, or at least made them easier to navigate. And effectively, WPS became useless because of the ease of use we added to wireless networks. Well, the problem is that there were so many different ways to connect to these networks that WPS was even complicated to implement. Do I use a PIN? Do we use a password? Do we use near field communication? Do we use used to be able to use USB drives to connect to a wireless network? Nope, we don't do that anymore. The real problem with WPS, however, was that it wasn't well designed. It did have a hack associated with it. It's an 8-digit number, really 7 digits, and the last number is a checksum. So you have to get through 7 digits. And if you do 7 digits, 99, 99999, you get about 10 million possible combinations. But we don't evaluate this WPS passphrase or the personal identification number as a whole number. We evaluate it as 2 separate numbers. One that is 4 digits long and the other one is 3 digits long because that last digit is for the checksum. So that means we've got about 11,000 possibilities that we'd have to step through to have all of these work properly. It doesn't take very long to go through all of them. Most of our access points these days have a brute force effect, a brute force counter inside of them just for WPS, because it used to be on the earlier versions of this, we could just go through all 11,000 possibilities and we would find the number to gain access to the wireless network in just about 4 hours. That's how easy it was. So that's why I tell you WPS is probably something you might want to disable on your access point. You're not using it anyway. If you are using it, you probably shouldn't be. So that's why WPS is something that we would say that definitely has a cryptographic vulnerability if all you have to do is step through 11,000 possible entries to find a way onto someone's network. That's a pretty big one. And if someone, even with brute force, what if they live next to you? They try a couple every day. They try it until it brute forces them out. They wait 24 hours. They try it again. So that's why we're really focusing on those. It does, I agree, this whole splitting it up and having one of the numbers a checksum, there's probably a good programming reason why they did that, very bad implementation reason why they did that. That's why cryptographic vulnerability is the right answer. Now, as I mentioned, WPS2, not a thing, doesn't exist. I was hoping to catch people that might think, oh, they're running WPA and they're upgrading to WPA2 or WPA3. There's actually 3 of those now. So that's not the answer we were looking for because it's one I completely made up. Don't waste your time hunting around for WPS2. It doesn't exist. Reducing frequency conflicts, obviously enabling or disabling WPS doesn't change anything with the data that's being sent over the antennas on that access point. So it is not only not going to reduce frequency conflicts, it's going to do nothing for frequency conflicts, as well as not doing anything for output power. So it would not be reducing output power either. And ultimately, WPS didn't have any special performance hit on any of these devices. In fact, it's only used for someone initially connecting to the wireless network. So disabling WPS is not in any way, in any discernible way, going to increase performance on your access point. Only 3% of you chose that one. The correct answer indeed was cryptographic vulnerability. If you answered that one, you got it absolutely right. Now, I know it's top of the hour. Normally, this is where we stop. We're going to do one more. Let's do one more that we can fit in here. I think we should. So our next question that we are going to have, we'll pull this one up. Here it is. This question, let's see how well you know this. I think you're going to do well on this one. I also feel like this is a nice gimme for the we'll see if it is or not. This question asks, a security technician is collecting forensic evidence from a laptop computer. Between the temporary files, backup tapes, memory, and Windows system files, which should be collected first? Should we collect temporary files, backup tapes, memory, or Windows system files? Only 4 answers here. So even if you don't know the answer, 25% chance, right? Just like an actual exam. A security technician is collecting forensic evidence from a laptop between the temporary files, backup tapes, memory, and Windows system files. Which should be collected first? Is it temporary files, backup tapes, memory, or Windows system files? Lock in your answer by going to professormester.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will figure it out at the end. We actually have those. This should be good as we step through all of these. So I think that would be good to kind of step through. Be a good one to have through. Now, if somebody has questions about these, if they want to go more detail into any of these questions, we certainly can in the after show. That's why we have an after show. Have kind of fit through all of this. Let's see how we do stepping through all of these. There are many other ways to get CEUs. I think these days, most people don't even collect CEUs. I think most people are just simply doing the CertMaster CE and having that there. So that's where we would go. CertMaster CE is probably where most people do it because you don't need to collect CEUs. You don't need to pay annual maintenance fees. You simply purchase the CertMaster CE. You take this online training system. It asks you questions as you go. You have to get 100% on the questions. But if you don't get 100%, you can go back and then take the test again until you get 100%. And generally it takes somebody... they used to say a few hours. They've kind of extended it to be more like half a day, maybe a day. I don't think it's a full day. I think for most people, it's probably half a day or less. But you take that, you're now renewed for 3 years. That's it. That's it. That's a beautiful thing to do. It's an easy thing to do. So it costs only a little bit more than the 3 annual maintenance fees combined, but you can do it in a day. And if you're down to the wire and tomorrow your certification expires that you've had for 3 years, you can quickly purchase the CertMaster CE, run all the way through it, answer every question right, hit submit, and you're now renewed for 3 years. Just so you're aware. I think that's what most people do. You can also take a higher level cert. You can take a third-party certification. There's a lot of different ways. I actually have a video in the YouTube video description of this video is how to renew your certification. In just a few hours. It really is talking about the CertMaster CE, but I talk about all those other methods too and why they're good or bad. Talk about advantages and disadvantages. So that's what I would recommend. Let's see how you did with this one. Then I want to answer a number of questions that have come through. So we'll hop to the after show where I can see some of these questions happening. Let's see how you did with this one that asked, a security technician is collecting forensic evidence from a laptop computer. Between the temporary files, backup tapes, memory, and Windows system files, which should be collected first? Should I collect temporary files, backup tapes, memory, or Windows system files? 60%, I thought it would be higher, says memory is what you should collect first. 24% of you, almost a quarter, say temporary files is where you should go. 10% said Windows system files, and then 7% say backup tapes. Well, you could probably recognize this if you recall my video that I have on the details of data acquisition, especially in forensics. Then we're talking about the order of volatility. And the order of volatility keeps us in mind of what type of data disappears first, what type of data disappears next, what type of data disappears after that. Because when you're collecting data, you have to collect the data in a particular order. and you have to collect it before it disappears. So you really need to know what type of data goes by very quickly and what type of data may stick around for days, months, or even years. And there is a nice chart here which talks about the order of volatility and being able to use it. And things like the memory in your system we have near the top, because memory is changing constantly. Things are being swapped in and out of memory all the time. Memory is being updated and changed by the CPU constantly. Those things really churn very quickly, so they're going to be the most volatile. They're the ones that are changing the most. And we have below that maybe temporary file systems. Temporary files, as the name implies, are files written to your system, usually by an application or the operating system itself, that are used temporarily, and then after a bit, they're deleted when they're no longer needed. They might stick around for a couple seconds. They might stick around for a minute. They might stick around for a day, but eventually, thus the name implies, they are temporary. They go away. So we want to grab them before they are deleted by whatever process is maintaining those temporary files. We have other things like data that's on a disk. So things like the data like in your system files. Those system files hardly ever change unless there's like a monthly update from Microsoft where they found a vulnerability and they need to update that particular Windows file. That file really never changes. And if you're never updating your files, it really never changes. Pretty important there as well. You've got other types of things like archival media. That would be your backups. Down there at the bottom, backups, we write them to a system. We send those backups off-site. They may be out there for years holding that data. They're really not going to be able to change. So that's why I collected those 4 different types of data: temporary files, backup tapes, memory, and Windows system files. So if I had to put these in order of most volatile to least volatile, so which one is going to change the most, and that's the one I really asked you about, that's the one that should be collected first because it's going to change in not too long, is the memory that's in your system. Memory's changing constantly, and 60% of you said, yep, that's what we would use. But let's go through this for extra credit. Let's choose the next most volatile. Let's say memory is not even in the list. Between temporary files, backup tapes, and Windows system files, which ones are the most volatile? And as I mentioned, temporary files can be around for minutes, for hours, or in some cases even days. I have actually gone back on my Windows computer and found temporary files back even years that weren't properly cleaned up. So that's one that temporary files is probably where we want to go next, because it could be these temporary files could possibly disappear in a minute. We don't know when they're going to disappear, so that's what we would choose as temporary files as next. That leaves us with the last 2, backup tapes and Windows system files. Which ones are going to be more volatile? Which ones are going to change faster? And really, just based on the 2 options we have, I already mentioned a monthly Windows update is going to change Windows system files, so they may be around for a month, and then those might change. So we certainly have that 10% Windows system files is the example there, but Windows system files, not the least volatile in this list. The least volatile, the data that will change the least and will probably be around for years by design, are your backups. Backups is what we were shooting for. So if you ever work through the backup tapes, that's one that's just going to be around forever. It's why backups are a very important security issue. If somebody gains access to your backups, you might not even realize it, and they would have access to a lot of data that's going to be there for a very, very, very long time. So there is your key. Those are the 4 different, in fact, we put them in order, in the order of volatility. So that's the one that you would be able to work through. I think those are 4 very good examples of things you should be aware of. And keep in mind, you may need to have some type of knowledge in operating systems to be able to work through these. So having an A+ helps you a lot with questions like that on Security+, as it turns out, whenever we're working through there. That is what we would shoot for, is having some knowledge of the volatility so that we can choose which would be first, second, third, and fourth. Should be a good one to go with. Now, if you're like these questions, you've gone through these questions, you're thinking, I want more. I want to be able to go through many, many more of these questions. Have I got the book for you? And I know because it took me months to write it. Is it my practice exams book, 380 pages long, 3 separate 90-question exams that are designed from the ground up to have the same feel, style, and kind of a writing as the actual exam. Now, it's not going to contain exam questions. I get this often, is that I went through all 3 of your exams in your book. I went to take the exam, and none of those questions were on the exam. Well, they're not going to be. I'm not giving you exam questions. I have written personally every question that's in this book. So I know what these questions are about, and I made sure to give them a similar style, but you're not cheating with this book. You're getting really high quality questions that are going to prepare you for anything the exam might throw out at you. And if you're looking for questions that are from the exam, then I would say you're probably in the wrong business. Why would you take a Security Plus exam and be a security person? You need to be the bad guy. You need to go take the attacker certification, I guess, in that scenario. That's what you want to do. I want to show you this just so you get a feel for what this is. It's more than just a book. So I have the PDF of this. It's both available in a digital and a digital and a physical version. And you can, of course, opt for the physical version or the digital one. On the digital one, I have one of the questions up. So let's go through a question on this one. It asks, the embedded OS in a company's time clock appliance is configured to reset the file system and reboot when a file system error occurs. On one of the time clocks, this file system error occurs during the startup process and causes the system to constantly reboot. We've all been there, haven't we? Which of the following best describes this issue? Is it DLL injection, resource exhaustion, race condition, or weak configuration? Now, you get to choose which one of those happens to be. You could, of course, I've got quick answers, which would just show you A, B, C, or D. And you can look at those on page 33, or you can go to the details on page 60. Now, don't just scroll ahead to page 60 because the book is designed with links where you can simply click on where it says the details and it takes you over to page 60. So I didn't have to hunt for anything to find this. It gives me another example of the question so I can read through it, and it tells you the answer is indeed race condition. But instead of just telling you the answer, I give you an explanation on why that is the right answer, and every question has a full explanation on why those answers were the correct ones. Now, of course, I never do that. I always get the question wrong, but none of these practice exams tend to give me a lot of detail on why I got the question wrong. But in my book, every single incorrect answer is fully documented on why it is not correct. And I would even tell you, even if you got the question right, I highly recommend you read through all of the incorrect answers as well, because there are some good nuggets thrown in there that could help you with a question on the exam. What if the question on the exam is asking you about resource exhaustion or a DLL injection? Wouldn't it be nice if you had already read up on that? And so every single one of these has that detail. And if you read the question and you have no idea what these words mean or what the question is even about, you can see at the bottom of every answer page is a link that takes you to the video where this question came from. So you can just go right to the video, watch all of the details so that you've got all the information you need to be able to answer this question. And in my PDF reader, I've got a back button. I can click my back button and go to the next question that's on the list. Those are my practice exams. There's a reason it takes months to write some of these books. We spend a lot of time giving you a lot of research on what makes a good question on these exams. What type of question can you expect to get from CompTIA? And then perhaps more importantly, how can we apply these questions back to your exam objectives? Unlike other, I would say less quality practice exams you will find, the questions in my book are all directly related to the SY0-601 Security+ exam, which is indeed what you will be taking. You will find other practice exams perhaps are not up to date. You'll get questions from the 501 or 401 exam, which, by the way, will not appear in your 601 exam no matter how hard they try to convince people that it will. So find out more. Go to professormesser.com/securitype. You can get your hands on that practice exam as well. Well, all of this information I've mentioned come directly from the exam objectives. Make sure you get a copy of these objectives. They are free. Simply type CompTIA exam objectives into your favorite search engine, or you can visit professormesser.com/objectives and follow the link over to the CompTIA website where you can download those objectives. They have everything in here, bullet by bullet by bullet, everything you need to know to pass the exam. And I tell people all the time, and it's absolutely true, if you know everything listed in every single one of these bullets that are in the objectives, you're going to pass your exam. Bottom line. That's how you know you're ready for the exam, because you went through these objectives. You know and can answer and explain every single one of those bullets. That's at professormesser.com/objective. It's free. It's the first thing you should read before your studies. It's the last thing you should study before you walk into your exam are those exam objectives. Make sure you get your hands on those. They are incredibly valuable. Well, we do one of these study groups every month. Wait a second. What do you mean we don't have one in November? Well, we don't. We usually, for years now, for years and years and years and years and years, we have done one of these every month. And for some reason, my calendar is just a little bit turned on its side in November. I don't know if it's the holidays. Is it getting too cold? I don't know. But we do not currently have one scheduled for November. That's okay. I will make it up to you in December where we're back. I have 2A Plus live streams in December on the 6th and the 8th, a Network Plus study group on the 14th, and the next Security Plus study group will be on December the 21st. We got plenty to go, but of course we have plenty of 601s study groups. You can always go back into our archive and watch any of those while you're waiting on us to arrive back in December. And this is also a good one to go with. Don't worry, there's nothing bad going on. There's nothing concerning about this. I'm just not able to get things in my schedule the way I would want them to be able to provide you with a study group. But that's okay. We're back in December. We'll figure out the details. We'll do a big holiday extravaganza in December of something. I don't know what it will be, but we'll definitely have more new questions for you, and we'll do another study group then. Come back on December 21st, and always keep checking back with the calendar, because maybe the date will change before then. You'll always know by visiting professormesser.com/calendar. Well, although we're done with the formal part of the question and answer, we're going to turn this around again. I'm going to have you ask me questions in the second hour. Stick around for the after show. Again, I will tell you that if you liked this study group, even if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs up anyway. Did they get rid of the thumbs down? So you're forced into it now. You don't have a choice. There is no, I will not click anything. You must click the thumbs up, and you must click subscribe. I demand it of you. It really does help. I have a set of folks at YouTube I've been working with now. We have some great meetings, and we're planning some fantastic things regarding education on YouTube. I've been able to provide them with a lot of input. We'll see if they are able to give us some things. There are some things happening very soon that I know about, and I'm able to participate because of you. So thank you for your thumbs up. Thank you for your subscriptions. It really does make a difference, and we appreciate that. If you do nothing else, I don't force anybody to buy anything, but it is it's a very easy way and a very free way to help support what we do here, and we sure do appreciate it to have that there. Don't forget about our vouchers and our exam hacks for those of you in the U.S. and Canada. You can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. And of course, course notes, exam books, and everything else is right there. professormesser.com/securitycn. Plenty there to go over. Let's do an after show, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here in the first hour. Stick around. We've got more to come where you ask me questions. We'll see how well I do on the hot seat right after this. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Let's see if I can click a few things on my side. There we go. Oh, no, we don't need that lower third. Let's get a couple of things fixed on my screen. Put a different lower third on. This is the after show. What is the after show? The after show is, since I've been asking you questions for an hour, I only thought it would be fitting if you could ask me questions. So that's what we do in the after show. I'll take questions from you in the chat room. I'll be able to step through all of those. We'll put those questions up. I saw a bunch of questions coming through in the actual show. I don't have time. I'm the only one here, so I don't write down what these are. So hopefully you remember what some of those questions are, and we can put them into the chat, and we'll kind of step through all of those. I do want to thank Tharis Fury in the chat room with the 20 euro super chat. Says, I know it's off topic. I passed Core 1 and Core 2 on the 26th of September. Now I'm A+ certified. Thanks a lot, James Messer, for the precious resources. Keep the lights on. Thank you, Tharis. I sure appreciate that. And a 20 euro super chat, too. So right off the top rope, thank you so much for your support. I saw it go through, so I appreciate that. And thank you. It does keep the lights on, and it does keep this crazy experiment going. So thank you for not only what you are doing now to keep the lights on, but down the road, others are going to be benefiting from that. So you really are paying it forward. Thank you so much. Let's go through some of the questions that we have coming in. When does the 601 exam, you said expire, but really the term that CompTIA uses is retire. This version of the exam is one that has been out since November of 2020. And it is estimated to retire on May of 2024. I know there's a lot of questions about that right now because the A+ exam, the older version of the A+ exam, is retiring tomorrow. So that is, well, what we would do is normally wait until May of 2024, but obviously a newer version of Security+ will probably be out about 6 months before that. But May of 2024 is pretty far away. So you got plenty of time if you are studying right now to make that happen. It is something that I think a lot of people maybe even don't realize is that these certifications go away. These versions, they keep updating it and making that happen. So that's the important part. Jonathan in the chat room with the question everybody wants to know, is this pre-recorded? Well, it is, but not right now. Hopefully that helps, except if you're watching it on the recording, then it is. Glad I was able to straighten that out. The Tiger in the chat room with $4.99 super chat asks, is it possible to get a $100,000 a year job with A+, Network+, and Security+ together? Well, it's certainly anything's possible. You go to a court of law. Is it possible? Yeah, well, it's possible. It's unlikely if the only thing you have is an A+ certification, a Network+ certification, and a Security+ certification. It's unlikely you're making six figures with just those three things. And that's something kind of to look at. If you've ever seen the articles that are constantly put now onto the internet, they used to show up in our trade magazines, but now they're on the trade websites. You often see that there are salary surveys that take place, and you want to be very careful, and you want to read the details about how they collected the data for these salary surveys. And they will say people who have an A+, Network+, and Security+ on average are making $93,000 a year. Yeah, but they have other things too. So the salary surveys are often not done by statisticians. They're often not done by people who understand the nuances of numeric evaluations. So in that particular case, probably not. You're probably not going to do that. The A+, Network+, and Security+ are really considered entry-level certifications. I know they seem so hard. How can they be entry-level? But they are. This really is the beginning of your IT career, so you're probably going to get paid at an amount that probably is an entry-level position. And of course, that varies. The United States itself is very large, and if you are in Maryland, you have different opportunities with your Security+ certification than if you lived in Seattle. Or maybe not. Maybe it's similar, but it does tend to change depending on where you are in the country. So that's why I tell people, I don't know how much you'll get paid. It depends on where you live. It depends on what the position is. It depends on the market. There's a lot happening and a lot of things that can change. But six figures right out of the gate, probably not. Will you have the potential to make six figures in your IT career if you continue to level up once you have that job? No question. Absolutely you will. There's so much opportunity out there in IT. There are so many ways that you can get into a six-figure position in IT, and it's across the board. There's so many ways to make that happen that I feel very strongly that if you want, if that's your goal, make six figures, you can absolutely do that in IT. It's not your first job, but it's, next two or three down the road, Or maybe you're lucky. Maybe you find one of those, that your next job is suddenly 6 figures. It does happen. It's not common, but it does happen. And it does depend on a lot of different variables. And that's why I tell people, you want to get in to IT. Just get in the door. And at that point, just be a sponge. Just start collecting data. Try to figure out what technology interests you the most, and then learn everything you can about that technology. The way that you differentiate yourself in IT is you become so knowledgeable in a particular technology that nobody else in your particular area, geographic location, maybe in your company, in your department, or maybe in your city, nobody else has this knowledge. You're the only one who now has some knowledge and at this point experience behind the information that you're learning. So I tell people all the time, this is a constant level up process in IT. Very different than how we think of working in a business was traditionally. Back in the day of our fathers, you would get a job and you would stay at that job for tens of years. You would collect a pension, and at the end of that tens of years, you would retire. There would be a pension waiting for you. These days, more of a 401k scenario. And then you would retire, and you can go use that pension to cover your financial needs in your retirement. But these days, especially in IT, we have kind of the 3-year plan. We get into a position. 3 years later, we jump to another position. 3 years later, we jump to another position. So 3 is often sometimes even a long time. I have had jobs where I have 9 months. I think was my out of college. My first IT job was a remote technician job. I would drive from customer to customer with their motherboard or their hard drive or their memory or a printer cable, and I would either deliver or install these things. So I would drive all over South Florida trying to connect with my customers, trying to get them the information they needed, upgrade their drive, upgrade their memory, and then I'm back in the car and going to the next customer. It's a challenging position, but you learn a lot. First, you learn how to navigate South Florida streets, and secondly, you learn about the technologies that you're working with. And I was able to take that knowledge and level up into a corporate help desk position. That's right. I moved up to help desk. I started below help desk and moved up into a help desk position. That was my first level up right out of school. And then right after that, leveled up into workstation administration, and then leveled up into network administration, and then leveled up into security. So that was just that one sentence is kind of 25 years of career. So there was, in some jobs, I was there 9 months. My remote technician job was a 9-month, maybe it was a 6-month position. It might have been 6 months. I feel so bad. Bruce, I'm so sorry. I was there like 6 months. You had to hire somebody else after 6 months, but I was done. Yeah, that's a kind of job that really, it's a tough one. It's a little arduous, going through every day, being in the car, going place to place. And I felt like I could move up and make more money, and indeed I could, and I did. Bruce did fine. Don't worry. My boss worked out just fine. He ended up starting an amazing VAR, and I guess ended up being a millionaire. So he did fine. You just never know where these things go. Maybe I should have stuck with him. Now that I think about it, did I make the wrong decision? It might have been. That's one of those where you just never know, but you get to make the decision. You get to be the one to decide what you're going to do next. And I think in probably no other career would you be able to have that flexibility. You can't do that as a doctor. You can't do that as a lawyer. You can't do that in any other position that might pay 6 figures, I would think. I think the easiest way to do that is IT. It's kind of crazy, but there it is. And that's why we do this. Because I want you to have that opportunity. I want you to get that first position. I want you to level up so that you have whatever your goal is. Is your goal to have a more flexible work environment? They've got jobs for that. Is your goal to travel the world and do technology? They have jobs for that. Is your goal to make 6 figures a year? They got jobs for that. Sometimes those things combine each other and make this happen. You know, one of the things I moved up into and found my niche outside the corporate world into the manufacturer world. So I worked with Network General, McAfee, network associates, which by the way was the same company, but had three different names, but different jobs, and finally Palo Alto Networks. And it was all about, for me, systems engineering. That was my niche that I really liked. I got to visit people. I got to demonstrate technology. I got to learn technology. I would say systems engineers have to learn more about these technologies than probably anybody else. We go through very, very detailed and extensive training as a systems engineer. So you can walk into a room and be in front of a customer and be very confident in what this particular product does. You don't want somebody representing the product walking in going, I don't really know how this works, but we'll see what it does. I guess it'll be okay. That's not the systems engineer you want. You want somebody walking in saying, you won't believe this. Let me plug this thing in. This is going to be crazy. Watch this. And that was literally the meetings that I would have with the next generation firewall is, you will not believe this. Just let me plug it in, and you're going to be crazy to walk through that. That is the interesting part of this, is kind of working through as a systems engineer, solving those problems. Because usually customers having problems. That's why you're there. We have a challenge with being able to block certain kinds of traffic. Will this firewall work? Yes or no? You have to know that answer. And you have to be trained to be able to do that. Works very well in that scenario. So that's what I would recommend for those of you that are kind of working into a position where you would like to be able to make six figures. You're in the right place. Now you just have to apply yourself. Like anything else, it's execution. Are there six-figure jobs? Absolutely. Would you be able to apply and get into one of those positions? Absolutely. But you're going to have to work to get there. They just don't sort of fall off the turnip truck. You really have to work to learn the content, to learn the technology, to position yourself properly for those. Sometimes it's a directed set of steps. You know what you need to do to get there. You create a plan. First, I'm going to get this certification. Then I'm going to get that cert. Then I'm going to learn more about this technology, and I'm going to set up a lab that does this, and then I'm going to apply for that job. So you know what it takes to get there. Sometimes these jobs just fall out of the sky. I mention often starting at Palo Alto Networks, and that was a job that was somebody I worked with years ago that we weren't really talking. It's not like something I didn't really keep up with him. I had no idea where he was even living at the time. He just called me and said, hey, I just talked to these people at Palo Alto Networks. They're going to hire me as a salesperson. You would be an awesome systems engineer. Is that something you want to do? And it just so happened where I happened to be at that point. I thought, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's try that one. And it worked out. So that's kind of how it works, is to have that there. So I thought that was kind of a, I didn't plan it. I didn't look for it. I wasn't even putting my resume out there. But when he said, is this something you would be interested in? I said, well, let me think about Yes, I have thought about it, and I am interested, and ended up getting that job. So that's where it came from. Messer Studios doesn't have a LinkedIn page. We do. ProfessorMesser.com/LinkedIn. See, I worked through that, Dax. Now, if you type ProfessorMesser.com/ whatever that social media is, and I'm not there, then I'm not there. For the most part. Or am I under an alias? Sometimes that happens. Really, I don't have time for much of that. So if I'm there, I'm there. If I'm not, I'm not. There's really no in between. Usually Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I think that's it to have those there. Let's see other questions that you might have. Let's see what we have coming through these pieces of it. We've got other things. So, well, this is one of the questions from earlier on, the very beginning. I've just passed my Security+. What other certifications do I need to get me into IT in that entry-level position? What do we do? Well, it depends. A lot of people don't start with Security+. They start with something else. And I think most of the time, I would say a great deal of the time, it's very geographical. I mentioned earlier specifically Maryland. And I really meant Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. The whole D.C. area is a useful one for Security+ because the Department of Defense for the federal government in the United States requires at a bare minimum a certain set of certifications, and Security Plus is probably one of the more popular ones in that list. So if you want to get a job working in IT, either with the federal government or with a contractor that works with the federal government, they will almost always insist that you have your Security Plus certification. That's it. So that's a pretty good reason to get one. Now, what if you're not in DC? You may go to Dallas. So now we're in the middle of the country. Let's say it's a part of Dallas. You're in Plano. There's a lot of software companies. There's some consulting firms. There's some hardware companies. But maybe none of those have a direct link to the Department of Defense or even an indirect one. They may not require you to have Security Plus. In fact, you may look at the job posting and see Security Plus isn't on there, but there might be other things. There might be Network Plus. There might be A Plus, or whatever it happens to be. So in that scenario, Security Plus may not help you. Whenever you're trying to figure out what do I do next, what certification should I go with, all of these things that are really a challenge, those scenarios are almost always based on what the employer would like you to have. So whenever somebody says, what should I do next? My answer is always, I don't know. I'm not hiring you. You need to ask the people that are hiring you, what should I get next? And obviously we can't directly ask them, but there is a way to tell what they're thinking, and that's by looking through the job postings. So find the job postings in your area for jobs that you feel you're qualified for. You know, you're obviously not going to apply for a director of information systems if you just got out of college or you just got your A+ cert. You're not somebody who would qualify for that position, but maybe there's an entry-level position in workstation or help desk or whatever it happens to be, and you can look through those job postings to see what type of things would the hiring manager like you to have. In the YouTube video description of this video, there is a video link for how to get a job in IT with no experience. And in there, I talk about this process of doing the research, creating a spreadsheet of every job in your area that you think you qualify for, and documenting what do they want for formal education, what do they want for certifications, and then what do they want for general knowledge. And that way, once you start documenting them, you can take a step back and look at the 10 or 20 jobs that you now have in the spreadsheet, and you should start to see some trends. You should start to see, is there a certification that's always popping up? Are there a set of requirements or things they want to see from you? Is it help desk support? Is it Active Directory? Is it a cloud-based technology? Whatever it happens to be, that's where you go next. Now they basically told you sort of indirectly, what should you go for next? Maybe every single one of those says you need an A+ cert. Okay, well now you know, go get your A+. The other one is, how do you do this? Okay, we'll do that. We need that cert. Now we need a Cisco cert. We need a Microsoft cert. We need an AWS cert. We need whatever it is. We need to go get that. But they'll tell you what they would like you to have. Whenever you do certifications, it's always interesting to see how all of those work together. And I think that's an important one to think about, is how I go through and identify where to go next with this. And I think that's exactly how you should focus on that. Another thing somebody mentioned in the chat was MTR. I mentioned earlier how much I use MTR, and you're absolutely right. On my machine, I have to run it in elevated mode. So I'm going to run it as sudo. And I'm going to do an MTR, in this case, Quad 9. Quad 9 is a DNS provider, and they very easily they're a very good one to use, because where I am, there's nothing in between to limit. So I'm just going to click enter. It's obviously, because I'm running as sudo, that I need to put in my super user password, and then it starts doing this. So you'll notice that it has created on the left side of the screen. I know it's really hard to see this. It's up at the top of the screen. Let's do this. Hold on a second. So get rid of my big head. There we go. So here's effectively, it's created a trace route. Look how fast it did that. Like, whoop, got a trace route. So I now have my trace route. That's what MTR is. I got it all wrong from the beginning. There are 8 hops between me and Quad 9. And of those 8 hops, I am measuring how many packets I'm sending. Look at them increment 34, 34, 34, 35, 35, 35, 36, 36. It's just going down the traceroute list and sending the traceroute packets, but it's documenting on the screen everything that it is finding when it goes through that traceroute. And fortunately, in this case, 0% loss. Now, whenever I'm having network problems, this is the first thing I go to. I type in MTR quad 9, and I start to see, well, it's fine to my router, it's fine to the next router, and then suddenly this loss number starts increasing. And I know, whoa, I'm losing packets somewhere along the line, something bad is happening. And it gives me a heads up that this is not running as optimally as it could be. Now, obviously, the challenge with this, and you've seen it before, is that this does not help you when it comes time to call your internet provider and say, look, I ran an MTR and I can see on the subnet that goes out on this link, and you can click a button and see the IP addresses of these instead of the fully qualified domain names. If I could see that 50.248.117.86 has a packet loss coming from that of 42%. And I'm getting very large ping times with a very low standard deviation. It's just very long all the time. No first-level tech you talk to at your ISP is going to know what to do with that. And they will answer, of course, properly, have you turned your router off and back on again? Because that really is the answer, isn't it? That's what we want to do. Ultimately, though, you will find somebody. You want to document these things and find somebody who can now help you understand why you're not seeing things the way they should be. And so that's another good one to use. Now, often what you will find, however, is that these problems happen when you're not there. These problems will happen when you're not in front of the computer. You have no idea what's going on. So what you could run is another utility that can track this over a longer time. And one that I like to use that's available in many different operating systems is Ping Plotter. If you haven't tried this, Ping Plotter is available for many different operating systems. I realize this is really small on the screen, but I'll zoom up here. So here, for instance, is that trace route to quad 9. I'm running a ping plot. The target is 9.9.9.9, which is quad 9. Look, you're getting similar statistics on average, minimum, and current response times, the times of receiving that ICMP back. And it actually plots it, how cool is this, on the screen, so you can really see averages, highs, and lows, and really see what is it doing right now with the communication. What's great about this, down here on the bottom right, it's now started to create a graph where it's collecting this over time. And I have somewhere out on my Instagram, I was having a network problem, but it only occurred at certain times of the day. So the ping plotter looked okay, and then there would be a block of red where it was not able to reach quad 9. And then it would go back to working again. And then I had a timestamp. And I could tell the technician or the person on the phone, I had an outage at 10:02, which lasted for 10 seconds. I had an outage at 11:07 that lasted for 7 seconds. I had an outage at 12:04, which lasted for 64 seconds. So you can start giving them qualitative information about what you are seeing on your network. And at times it's working fine. We touch nothing. And at times it just goes away. And then they can go back and look at their logs and see, oh, yeah, I see in my logs at 12:04, whenever it was you told them, oh, yeah, I definitely see there's something that, oh, it's a signal problem. Okay, I need to get a tech out there. So sometimes you can go right to where the problem is happening instead of my network is slow, or I don't know, it just disconnects sometimes. I don't know why. Having some data where it is clear when it happened, what is happening, and where it is happening can be very valuable. And it kind of cuts through a lot of the, have you turned it off and back on again? Yes, I did. And this is what we got. And if they ask to do it again, great. We'll turn off, turn back on again. I'll run this again. Then I'm calling you back. And we're going to go through this again. So that ping plotter is available for a lot of different operating systems. Pretty much anything you're running, you can run this. And it's a great little tool. If nothing else, it's for you. So you know you're not going crazy. It really is doing this. And that's how we can kind of break through where these problems are occurring and maybe get the problem solved just a little bit, just a tad bit faster. Just a little faster would be nice. That would be good. I would recommend that. So that's what I would say. So if you are someone who is trying to break it down, get more details, I love MTR. I mentioned that earlier, and that was a good overview of that piece. Ping Plotter is another one. Both of those are really, really valuable in things they can provide just at an end user's perspective. And then, of course, there are more complex things that you can do after that point. I'm not beyond taking a packet capture. Those of you that have followed me for years know that's my background, that I was the packet guy for years and years and years. So I love getting a packet capture of a problem because that really does show somebody what is going on. You can't deny the packets. And they don't tell you that. The folks on the phone aren't going to tell you if we only had a trace file, because they don't know how to grab one of those for most people who are in their home offices. But if you have one, there's an amazing amount of data that you can gather from a trace file. So if you have a way to capture a trace file, you should do that. The best way to do that, Wireshark, that's what you should use. Have I even upgraded Wireshark on this computer yet? You know, they came out with the latest version. Is the latest version 4? Trying to remember. But if I go to my Wireshark screen, what about am I using here? I'm using 3.0.6. I'm so behind. So I need to upgrade my Wireshark eventually. But Wireshark is another great way. I'm not going to show my packet captures, but Wireshark, the best way, load it up in your operating system, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, doesn't matter, and capture those packets. That can also save you a lot of problems later on. Save those packets. Be very valuable to have that there. I would think, if anything, that would absolutely be the situation we're dealing with. So there's where we would break those down, is through those different pieces. And I think if you're somebody who is just trying to do some troubleshooting and trying to understand what's going on in this network, you know, that's a great way to do it. Now, I don't know exactly the question people are referring to in the chat, but you're talking about a watering hole attack and why it would or not be impersonation at a convention for security professionals. If you've got every security professional in the area in a room, that's the perfect time for a watering hole attack. They've all come to you. They're all sitting there in that room. That's perfect to be able to make that happen. I guess impersonation would be valid too, but I have a sneaking suspicion that's no longer in the practice exam. So we'll have to figure that part out as we step through the details. Whenever I go into any situation where I'm trying to troubleshoot a problem, gathering information is the key. So often, even in what I do, I'm asking people for troubleshooting information all the time. They're looking for a voucher. They're looking to log in properly to the Professor Messer website. They are going through a process of trying to figure out how to make something work inside of my server. They'll send me an email that says, tried logging in, doesn't work. Okay, can you give me anything? Was there a message? What did you click on? Do you have a screenshot? Anything. But effectively, what I have to do is now reply back to them and say, was there a message? Do you have a screenshot? Can you send me a screenshot? And if I have that, I can help you troubleshoot. And I'm more than happy to help troubleshoot. I just want to go down that road. So feel free to send me whatever you got, but you have to send me something other than, yeah, it doesn't work. That's not helping the person who's on the other end of the phone either. So if you are someone who's getting into this level of troubleshooting, this type of work, you tend to do more of that. You tend to do a lot more of, here's a screenshot, here's more information. So even before you're calling, they are trying to figure out why this may or may not be the answer you're looking for, but you need to provide them with something. You need to give them that. You need to have some way to explain to them what's going on other than, that's slow. That doesn't work. Screenshots are amazing. Screenshots are incredibly valuable for this. Where can you download MTR from? You know, the MTR that's in Linux and Mac OS, I think I got mine on Brew. But if you're in Windows, there's a WinMTR that's really good that I have used in the past. But let's see what the main website is for MTR, which I should be able to pull up. And my man MTR. Let's see if it has anything in here that might help me. They do. So I am, so for those of you that are following along, since I'm in Mac OS here, and I know it's really small, I'm going to man MTR it just so we could see, and we're going to go all the way to the end of man MTR, and it says for patches, bug reports, or feature requests, open up an issue. Oh, the MTR webpage. See the MTR webpage at www.bitwizard.nl/MTR. Does that website even exist anymore? Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out in a moment, because I'm going to pop open a browser window and see if I can get there. You've probably already beaten me to it. We're probably hitting their website like crazy right now. The BitWizard does indeed work. So that's where I would go, is to their main website and download MTR. Where to get MTR? It said is Git repository at GitHub. You can also go to the FTP site or the files. And if you would like to try to use in your operating system, you can, of course, get a pre-compiled version, or you can compile it yourself. Or in the case of Windows, he probably doesn't have a Windows version on here. Let's see. Doesn't look like it. Oh, there it is, building for Windows. So you would need Sigwin for that. So it's still this version. It's still command line, but you could build it in Windows, apparently, with this configuration. I've not run it. Now, I have run, there is a third-party version that is a Win MTR, not Win, but Win. Win MTR, W-I-N MTR, Win, there. It's on SourceForge, not good. But there is a flavor out there. I don't know if I download from SourceForge though. But somewhere else, find a version that's legitimate. But a very valid question: where do I get this from? Because that could be bad, and you're right, it absolutely could be. SourceForge has had their problems in the past. Most of it with trust. We don't trust them because they used to play a little fast and loose there with what they did with the files that were hosted on SourceForge, put their own things into the zip files, and it goes back, which is, I guess, why nobody goes there anymore. I say nobody, I don't. And I guess I just assume that nobody does, but that's not how it works. Somebody goes there or they wouldn't be there. So I would recommend, if that's your only choice, just look it over carefully. SourceForge generally is at least virus or malware free. The only issue is sort of working through their own self-imposed additions to these. And I think they've kind of come off of that a little bit. I think they've made it made themselves less intrusive with these free products. So WinMTR might work pretty well. I like it a lot. As I mentioned, MTR is the first thing, even in my own house, when somebody says, is the internet down? MTR. I don't even do pings, trace routes. I don't even do it. I just MTR to quad 9. And if it works, I know we're up. If it doesn't, we're not. That's where I go with those. I think that's a pretty good way to approach these problems. And there's a lot of other options within MTR I did not even show. It's sort of like, you ever work with Nmap? Do you notice with Nmap, there's so many things you can do with Nmap that you didn't even know was in there, but you read through the manual and you realize, wow, I could do that. Let's do that. Same thing with MTR. Let me do an MTR again, and hopefully I can show you some of this. So we're doing that same MTR to quad 9. Hey, question mark, look all this stuff you could do. Toggle MPLS information on off, toggle DNS on and off. That was the thing I was looking for. So if I didn't want the names, I could just do the numbers. There we go. Let me bring in the rest. The screen was stretched over the other side. Question mark, again, toggle the latency, report cycle in, set the ping interval to in seconds. So if you want, instead of 1 second, you could go to 5 or 10, especially on big networks. Switch between ICMP and UDP, switch between ICMP and TCP. That's pretty good stuff. So if you're on a network where ICMP is just blocked, you can switch over to some other method to communicate out that isn't blocked, where you hopefully can at least receive the ICMPs inbound. Sometimes that helps. So that might be the way to do it. And I love it. It's a great thing to have. Make sure it's on your system. Comes in handy. You will find it exceptionally powerful, especially when you run into a problem. So become familiar with it now. Understand the different options available to you today. And then at that point, when something goes wrong, you're ready. You've already used the utility. You know what it does, and that's the one that will be there. Will this be available later? Sure. The one thing we do with this is we stream on YouTube. So if there is, when we finish this and I say we're complete and I hit a big stop button on my side, YouTube spends a couple of minutes churning through and getting this video ready for you to view. And then it's available immediately on my YouTube channel. You can simply go there and watch the replay. And then later today, maybe tomorrow, there is an entry on my website as well, so you can go and look at all the different categories. It's also automatically put into the SY0-601 study group playlist. So if you go to youtube.com/@ProfessorMesser or go to professormesser.com/YouTube, whichever one you're more comfortable with doing, you do that, and you'll see there is an option there for playlists. And in the playlist for the SY0-601 study groups, this is automatically added to that. So it's automatically added to the appropriate study group. And it's just minutes later. You don't have to wait on me. I don't have to edit anything. Thankfully, it's so simple. I don't even have to think about it. It just appears. And we're in really good shape. That's what I would recommend. And a good way to do it, I think. If there's something else you would like to see, I often tell people that if there is a different service that you would like to see, if there is a different streaming service you would like the podcast version to be on, just let me know. Right now, you can go to Apple Podcasts, you can go to the Google Podcast, you can go to a bunch of it, go to iHeartRadio, Spotify, and we're there. Just search for Professor Messer and you'll find it. No problem there. So that's my goal, is to make that happen. Let's see other questions that come in. Should I purchase a home lab for networking or just get Packet Tracer? Have you ever seen Packet Tracer? Those of you that haven't used Packet Tracer before, it is a very, very useful utility. It is an emulation utility from Cisco. So you would think offhand, well, great, how much is that going to cost me? Surprisingly, Packet Tracer doesn't cost anything. So you can load up Packet Tracer. No, really. Packet Tracer is available from Cisco. And as long as you register, not completely free, but you can register at Cisco, and it's mostly free. So they do give you that option. And once you're registered, that doesn't cost any money to register. So if you want to keep it from a dollars and cents perspective, it is free. You can get into it and you're not going to have a problem at all. Packet Tracer allows you to build out a network, routers, switches, in stations, ping across the network. And because it's a virtualized, so to speak, environment, you can stop time and watch the packet go from place to place. You can see what's happening inside of a router when a packet hits it, and then you can watch the packet and where it goes after that. And you've got a Cisco command line that you can go to. You've got a lot there that you can work through. So if you're someone who's working through trying to understand how do these things even go together, there's a lot of pre-built Packet Tracer utility screens or labs that you can download and load up into Packet Tracer. It's a great tool. I often use it to answer questions. Hey, what if we did this? We set up a couple switches, we put some routers on the side, got in stations. What if I change a routing table to say this? What happens to the packet? You can create that scenario and test it in a matter of minutes. Packet Tracer is really fast. So you can drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop, give it some IP addresses, put some in stations on the side, send a ping, stop time, see what happens. Change the routing table, do it again, see what happens. It's really quite a nice utility. It's not actual Cisco code. It's an emulated code, but it might as well be. It's so accurate and so directed. It's almost like you're on a real switch and a real router. So that's the idea, is to have that functionality there. And it's relatively powerful. It is perfect for someone who's getting their CCNA. If you get beyond your Cisco Certified Network Administrator certification, then you'll probably actually want to get hardware. But here's the thing you may not realize. I think a lot of people think, I just need switches and routers. I need hardware. I'm going to go buy some hardware on eBay, have it shipped to me. I'll load it up in the rack they give me, and I'll use the cables, and we'll build this out. Well, the scenario that I just did where I built that out took a matter of minutes. Well, if I have real hardware, I'm spending almost an hour plugging things in, manually setting IP addresses, now moving the console cable over, changing the IP addresses again. Now I got to cable these things in. Oh, I need 2 stations on the end of this. Do I have another computer around here? Yeah, okay, give me cable. So you're spending an hour putting together just the network before you even learn anything. I tell people all the time, you don't need hardware. Use software. And by the way, and here's the part that's the really secret part they never tell you, when you get into a network administrator position, you may not ever be touching this hardware during the day. You may not even see it. It may not even be in the same city that you're in, but you're managing it. You're SSH into these devices. They're all remote. You're not touching it anyway. Why do you think you need to touch it now? That's not the important part of your job, is touching the hardware. It's fun. Let's be clear. I love hardware. I love walking through a data center. I love the blinky lights. I love the sound of the fans. I love it. But one of the challenges you're going to find is that you're not going to do that during the day. You're the network guy. You can't even go in the data center without permission. You're not allowed unless somebody gives you permission to be in that data center, and for good reason. So you have to do everything remotely. And so that's why I tell people, do it in software. Why would you get hardware? You're going to be tired of that in a day. If you want to truly get the feel of setting up hardware, you need to first lose your screwdriver where you can't find it. That's step 1. Secondly, you need to not have the right number of screws for your rack, or this is probably more accurate, you have the wrong kind of screws for your rack. What? Isn't there just one set of screws? Oh, no. No, we could not do that. There are different types of screws for different racks. And thirdly, now I have to have cables. I have to have power. I have to have all the pieces to make all of this work. It's just not worth it. If you really, really wanted to get the feel for it, take your cable modem and just unplug and plug in some of the wires. That's it. You've now emulated exactly what a network person does when they're in front of actual hardware, is you're just plugging in different wires. That's it. So we're not talking about a high level of function. It's literally unplugging RJ45 and plugging it back in is the only thing that actual hardware teaches you. Not the only thing, but it's pretty close. I think the virtual environment is so much better. I want to thank Tiger in the chat room with a $4.99 super chat. Tiger says, Professor Messer, do you think small enterprises are away from Cisco devices and using more unifi, sonic wall, et cetera, as their routers and switches? Well, I guess it sort of depends. I see Cisco has always been sort of this up and down company. I'll give you an example of this. You probably won't even believe this when I tell you. I started working with Palo Alto Networks in 2000. It was approximately let's say it was 14 or 15 years ago. I got a job working with Palo Alto Networks, and I stayed there about 7 years. Which is, I told you the 3-year plan. It definitely was more than the 3-year plan on that one. It was just such a good job. And I had the same job for the entire time. So I'm pretty proud of myself. Thank you so much. I'm taking that one with me, whether you don't. I will. But when I started there, Cisco came out with a big proclamation that they were going to change the focus of their company to focus on 4 key areas of technology. None of those 4 areas was security. None. There was a time when Cisco said we are going to concentrate on these 4 areas of technology. None of them were security. And I would argue with you today that that lack of vision, that lack of execution in the security market at that time still ripples down today into that organization. Cisco has never quite gotten back on the bike ride for security. They ended up buying some security and kind of, as Cisco tends to do, kind of halfway integrating it into everything they did. But they were buying sort of an older style of security and kind of cramming it into an older firewall, the poor ASA firewalls they used to have. Or at one point, the ASAs were just kind of dropping off the map. People were just throwing the ASAs out and putting in the Palo Alto networks. I replaced and threw out a lot of Cisco equipment and put Palo Alto networks in its place. Now, hope they've made at least some strides forward since then. They finally realized, like 5 or 6 years later, hey, you know what? Security's kind of important. I know. They did. And so they decided, you know what? We're going to get back into this, and we're going to use all of the knowledge and information that we have accumulated. No, we're actually going to buy somebody. We're going to just buy somebody. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Forget our knowledge and experience. We're just going to buy some old stuff and stick it in here. And that's what they did. And it seemed to work. Some people buy Cisco because they like to buy Cisco. And the question from Tiger was very specific to small enterprises. Cisco does not have a very good footprint in the small business line. I was just looking over some Cisco switches. I have an old switch that I need to replace. It's like a small business 300, which you've never heard of. But they made a line of switches for small businesses that didn't have the overhead and nuisance value of a dedicated salesperson. So you could buy it from eBay. You could buy it from Amazon. You could buy it from, they just sold them. They didn't hassle you. There wasn't licensing fees or annual maintenance fees or support fees. Just buy the switch, you put it in the rack, you're done, which is what most small businesses want. But I started looking around thinking, okay, we need a new switch. I'd like it to be some 10 gig. I'd like it to have this. I'd like to have that feature. So I went over to Cisco because I have their switches now. I like their switches. I have nothing. I think their security stuff is just horrible, but I like their networking pieces. I love their routers. I love their switches. They work great. But then you start looking at the rest of the industry. Now that I went to their site and like, well, they really didn't have what I wanted on the small business side. What does everybody else have? Wow. Everybody else is way beyond what Cisco is doing. Everybody else has made leaps over them to really create some interesting technologies. Whether it's something I want to implement or not is different, but there's some good stuff out there. The things that I find for switching, especially on what I want to be able to do, the unifi stuff is amazing, remarkable. Even some of the lower end things are really interesting. I don't think I have the right unifi website up, but there we go. Their website is, their interface is remarkable. The things you can do from just an iPhone. Look at it's just beautiful. So I saw this and thought, is that really, first, do I need the fancy graphics? Do I need to, yeah. I mean, look, yeah, that's exactly what I want right there. Nothing like, well, I won't say nothing like this on the Cisco side. The problem is that to get that on the Cisco side, you would need to integrate 4 other devices that then cost a bunch of other stuff, and then it works. Is unifi free? It is not. I mean, you still got to buy the switches and the routers and everything else. This is their equipment, but it's the software that supports their equipment, and it's very integrated. If you watch some of the YouTube videos on this, you buy another unifi switch and you plug it in, and it just pops up on your screen. It says, hey, you got a new switch. What do you want to do with this? And then you configure it. It's crazy. But just compare this single animated GIF or GIF to what you find on a Cisco switch. There's no comparison. And if you're a small business, you need it as easy as possible, with as little maintenance as possible, and something that anybody would be able to work on. And I found that to be telling. And this is not the only one. I like a lot of other things, but some of the older, the Cisco's trying to get there. Their wireless stuff is pretty good, but again, they bought it. They brought it into the Cisco domain, but it doesn't apply to any other Cisco devices. Cisco switches don't look like this. Cisco routers don't look like this. That was unifi. At UI.com is what that was, UI.com. So that was the unifi, and they have a nice story. I've not used to be fair, full disclosure, I've not used their equipment personally. I know others that have, but I looked at this and thought immediately, well, why would I get that clunky old Cisco stuff when I can get 10 gig, a passive multi-port 10 gig switch, no fans, or the fans are very quiet. It's very interesting how they know what people are interested in because they make notes about this in the product information pages. But very quiet, can sit in a closet. Nobody knows it's there, and it has that interface on it. I thought, okay, there's a game. The game is indeed afoot. Now what? And not only that, then I started looking at other manufacturers. I mean, there's a lot out there for small businesses that might make a lot more sense than something like a Cisco. So that's kind of up to you. What kind of makes sense? The thing I found from the security side, it was kind of easy. When Cisco comes out and says, here's what we're concentrating on, and none of it is security, it was very easy for me to walk into customers and say, oh, you're running an ASA firewall. What did you think of what Cisco said last month when there was no mention of security in their future? Because there wasn't. They did nothing for years on security. Made it very easy for someone with another type manufacturer's firewall, not just ours, to be able to walk in and say, don't you want a firewall that's a little more modern, that at least knows about applications? And then you could just go from there. So that's the key. That's the interesting part to me. So the answer is find what works for you. I could just as easily put in the same type of Cisco gear in my data center, technically a closet that's right there. You don't even see it. But I call it my data center because it's one rack, one 19-inch rack that everything is in. And it's really one of those situations where if Cisco had it, I just buy that if it was easy to buy. Cisco's a big company. They got big company problems. They got big company challenges. And you can tell where those challenges are if you look hard enough. And someone like me who's been in the industry, they're obvious. You can say, oh, well, it's sort of like when you see someone who built a house. They built a new house. And you walk in, you're like, wow, your dining room is amazing. Look at this kitchen. And then you walk upstairs and there's like no furniture and the floors are bare. And you're like, oh, here's where they ran out of money. Immediately, that's where the house stopped being built. It's sort of the same thing on the Cisco switch side. You can go, okay, they had the 300 series and they upgraded this. Okay, then they stopped doing anything. So that's the situation that I find myself when I'm looking around at these websites, like, oh, that's where they stopped making products right there. Combine with that all of the challenges associated with getting equipment right now. This may not even be a situation where you even get to choose the manufacturer. I just need a switch. And the switches aren't out there. It may take you 6 months, 9 months, a year to get equipment right now. That's probably your bigger problem. eBay's a great place right now. Just go buy it on eBay, stick it in your closet, and keep it moving. That is not a Cisco problem. It's not a unifi problem. It's an industry problem. It's a worldwide problem. It's a problem. It's really hard to get product, and it's a big issue. So you throw yourself on eBay. You hope for the best. You try to avoid the scammers, and you try to find something that's going to get you through the next 2 years, and then maybe think about what you can do after that. But some of this hardware is very specialized. You can't get a brand new Palo Alto Networks firewall from eBay. You got to go to Palo Alto Networks. You can't get a brand new Cisco switch from anybody else but Cisco. So that's the challenge. In the chat room, they're giving us the horror stories. Yes, 392 days to get a Cisco access point. But that's not a Cisco problem. That's an everybody problem. Everybody's got problems getting equipment. The entire chain is problematic right now. Is it going to get any better anytime soon? Probably not. So we'll have to see. Now you can get into more of a global problem. Where does the equipment come from? Where does the working content come from to just create the switch or the router? And then where is that router put together? Can we put together in the States? Is it put together outside the United States or outside of the country that you happen to be in? Why is there a problem? Well, it's many and varied, and it has to do with all of the things that we see going on in the world. Almost everything right now is about timing and money and recovering from being out of work for a year or so when you shut down the world for a year, it has repercussions, and this is one of the repercussions of that, and among other things. But this is probably one of the larger obvious ones for us here in the industry, is getting this equipment. We sort of saw it earlier when you would drive by a car dealership about a year ago and you're thinking, where's all the cars? Well, there wasn't any. That's the problem. In fact, many cars were sitting there waiting for some silicon to show up because they needed chips for the car, for the electronics in the car. Well, the same chips that we're waiting to put into our switches and our routers and everything else. There's our issue. I had my car at a dealership waiting for parts for 2 months. So it was just sitting there at the dealership waiting to get parts. That's not something specific to that dealership. It's not something specific to me. It's something that we're all having to deal with. It's slowly getting better. Slowly getting better. Now that it's different in different parts of the world. I'm based in Florida. We came out of the hole and took our masks off a long time ago. We realized, okay, the pandemic part of this is over. We're now endemic. Everybody's going to get it. And it turns out it's now at a point where it's mutated. And if you get it, you're going to be sick, but you're not going to die. So we can now go back to work. And that's what we did. It's not quite the same everywhere in the world. There are still places that have a lot of lockdown. And right now, China is still locked down very hard. Guess where all of our equipment is made? It's made in China. So it's interesting that China is so heavily locked down right now, but I guess it's working because they've reported that there are no cases of COVID thanks to their lockdowns. There you go. They solved the problem. But unfortunately, it affects people being able to work there, which in turn affects us being able to get equipment. And there you go. So eventually, when the world kind of gets back in its own, everybody's in a boxing match right now. When everybody gets back out of the boxing match and starts working together again, then things will be a little bit better. But that's the real challenge, is making that happen. This is probably a good way to kind of wrap things up today. Eskelito in the chat room passed your 220-1002 a few minutes ago. And so my question is, was that the last certification for your A+ certification? Are you now A+ certified? And I mentioned that, as I mentioned earlier, for those that were listening. Yes, this person now, Eskelito, is now A+ certified. A+ certified, by the way, for the certification that retires tomorrow. That's how down to the wire. You must have been sweating bullets in this room as you were taking your exam, because this is it. You maybe have a day that you could retake, but I'll bet all the seats are taken. And I got to tell you, it's crazy right now. Everybody's working on getting this down to it. But here's the beauty. Even though the exam retires tomorrow, Eskelito is certified for 3 years. Boom. You just put it aside. You're now certified. In fact, you'll never have to take the certification exams again because you can simply renew it every 3 years and not have to go through that. So first, congratulations on your A+. That's fantastic. Congratulations on getting it done, but down to the wire. We're humans. That's sort of how it works for us. We wait till the last minute, and it turns out in this case it works out. There are still books for the new version of A+. The new version of A+ was released in April, so it's been an overlap period for 6 months until now. But there are books for A+ in this new version that still have not been released. And it's because we were just talking about this. Interestingly, this affects everybody, as it turns out. There's an enormous worldwide paper shortage right now. As somebody who prints a lot of books, for those of you I've held up for you, the books, these are printed books. I print on demand, so it helps a little bit. So when you purchase a book, I send that book to the printer, and they go, we will print this book just for this person. So when you receive your book, it was printed for you. I don't have an inventory. I don't plan on having an inventory. I don't want an inventory. So when you buy it, I make it for you. This is yours that nobody else was going to have. It was just for you. So that saves a little bit on paper because there's nothing sitting on a shelf just waiting for you to order. But I also have to have paper ready to go, and it's been a challenge. It's difficult to ship because we have to wait for the paper to arrive so that we can print some books up, and then we have to wait for the next paper delivery. And it's that way everywhere, even for the big publishers. And so one of the things that's keeping some of these printed physical books off the market is that there's nothing to print it on. That's crazy, but that's the situation we're in. And I live in a part of the world, I live in North Florida, and there's pine trees everywhere. Well, we have one of the counties just down the way has a pine tree festival every year. That's how many pine trees are in this area. That's how much logging and paper goods are. That's how important it is to this particular part of the state. And that's a real problem for us because we've got the paper pulp and we've got the trees are cut down. Now, how do we get them to the people that actually make the paper of this? Well, it's not here. It has to be shipped off. And those people aren't working right now. Or if they are, there's limited availability. So it's a problem all the way through the line. All the way down the line is an issue. The hard copies, these books are printed in different parts of the world. If you're in the U.S., it's printed in the U.S. If you order from Canada, I think I print them in the U.S. and ship them to Canada. I have printers in Australia. I have printers in Europe and the UK. So they're printed locally and shipped to you as local as I can make it. But it's sometimes a challenge. And the and the paper problem, same around the world. If you're in Germany, I think it's printed in the UK and shipped to Germany. Same type of deal. Can I sign yours? Well, only if you bring it to me because I don't send it to you. The printer sends it to you when they print it. I never see it. They're printing it out of New York, and they're sending it to you from there with the regular coffee. It's an amazing job they do, and I love what they've done with the books. They do a fantastic job with that. It's completely automated. There's great support. There's just no paper. And as it turns out, if you're in the printing business, you need the paper. So that's why for this. And I like textbooks too. Mrs. Professor Messer, she likes the textbooks, which is the reason I used to have only digital. But she's the one that said, yeah, but I like to sit down and read it. And I thought, well, I'm being a bad business person because I'm only putting myself into the position of what people want, not actually thinking about what people want. Turns out a lot of people like to have a book in their hand. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. It's certainly one, I want to provide people with what they need to be able to learn best. And that's why we ended up doing those. Planning on coming to Texas next year. Would love you to sign mine, but I'm not in Texas. So that becomes more of an issue, I guess. Not going to Texas. Well, I shouldn't say not going to Texas. Maybe I will go to Texas. I saw that to set my age, Blink 82 is touring. I know they're going to Texas. I got to find wherever they're going. I got to go to that concert. So there's things I have to do. I got plans. Now that people are finally touring. I would like to come to New York. I spend a lot of time in Orlando. I spend a lot of time in North Florida. I got to find some other places to go. I just came back from Maine, so I go out. But none of you are in Maine. Very few of you are in Maine. There are some in Maine, but very few to make that happen. We got to figure those pieces out. If you're somebody who's trying to make that happen, yeah, Atlanta's a good place to go for concerts too. I've gone there for some concerts, but it is a challenge. Maine was phenomenal just before the fall. There at the end of the summer, but the books come directly from the publisher, so unfortunately, I can't sign it unless I'm there. And it probably lowers the value of the book if I do that. So I don't know. This time in Maine, I went to Bar Harbor. We went to Bar Harbor to see the whales. And boy, did we see the whales. It was fantastic. Had a great time. It's really remarkable. Can our books be shipped to India? They can be shipped to anywhere in the world that is currently shippable to. So, for example, I can't ship to Russia. I can't ship to Ukraine. And I think probably all of the COVID restrictions have been lifted from other places. There was a certain amount of time where I couldn't ship to South Africa, for example. They would not accept a shipment because they just cut off the border. No. But I think they're back up and running. They haven't been for a while. But there are places in the world where I cannot ship, but basically everywhere in the world that's not currently under some type of conflict is I can ship to. Yes, no problem. No problem. I know. I just discovered Blink-182 as a young child, and so I want to go see them. So that's my argument. Is not that I'm too old to remember, their original album. I'm simply saying that I only just discovered them here as a youngster, and I find them remarkably interesting, and that's why we're going to go with that. That's one of those situations where we're just going to go with that and see what happens. I was hoping they're playing some big places, so we'll go there. Bar Harbor is nice this year. We did see whales. It's remarkable. Make sure you go on the whale watching. If you go up there, they will find them eventually. If they don't, I think they give you a credit. You can get back on the boat later and go back out there. We saw some amazing stuff out there. It was really a good time. I like going somewhere and just not where it's not very technical. There's not a lot of technology around. Las Vegas for me is sort of, just more blinky lights. I like going somewhere perhaps where there's not quite so many blinky lights, and sometimes that works out pretty well. Bar Harbor certainly fit that bill. It was kind of funny watching the comings and goings. It's a very touristy town, so they'll be shutting down here shortly. They have all of the cruise lines come in. They just bring all the cruise people in. They take them on the tours. That was kind of funny to watch. But it is a beautiful area of the country with amazing nature. The reason we went there, sort of aside, I know I was wrapping this up, but I'm not. My brother-in-law hiked the Appalachian Trail, which starts in Georgia and it ends just a few hours from Bar Harbor in Maine. And he hiked the whole thing. He just end to end. He was not a day hiker. He got on the trail and hiked it all the way up. And we were kind of his home team. So when he needed, sometimes there would be a huge storm coming through, and instead of staying on the trail, we would get him a room like at the local place. So I'd be on the internet. I'm like, okay, I got you a place. Get out of the lightning. Go in there for the night. Get a shower. Go back on the trail, and he would keep going. So he wasn't outside the whole time, but much of it he was, and it was remarkable. Yeah, it was. He started. How many months did it take? I think he started in April, and we ended up finishing up in September. I think it was, or just before that, the beginning of September. So that's how long it took. He's quite literally an actor from New York who also works as a waiter. And he is on some pretty big shows. You can find him on network television as a background actor. He's incredibly successful doing it and loves doing it. So, the Law and Orders and the I forget the specific, there's one that he's on right now. I need to remember what it was, but that's one of those things that he's that guy, and just went out into the world, just went out into the trail. And he beat it, which is saying something, because I saw some of the stuff he walked through, and it was remarkable. So I think that's why we were in Maine. That was a long story that nobody really cared about, but I did, so you got to hear it. And that's the beauty of having your own live stream. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for, I know we're coming up on skipping a month, but thank you for all of the live streams that you've attended throughout the years. I sound like this is the last one. It's not. We're going to be back in December with what I'm calling my November-December study group. So we're going to get right back on the bike and just keep riding. Lots going on, lots of things we're working on behind the scenes. There's always something crazy happening on this side. We thank you so much for being on these live streams. We enjoy it. We hope you're able to get something from them as well. And as we're off for this next month, It's sort of the holiday season we're going into here in the States. Thanksgiving that has happened and will happen for the U.S. It's a great time. Just hang out and relax. Hopefully you can do that as well. Now's the time to kind of put together your plans, your strategy for what you want to do next. How are you going to level up next with IT? Now's the time at the end of the year, kind of think about what is your plan? What are your strategies going to be for 2023? It's right around the corner. So we can maybe talk about what you think is going to be happening on the next study group in December. We'd love to see you back here. Thanks for joining us on this one. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. Thanks, everybody. See ya in December.